Chapter 973. A Black Ring. List quickly found out the origin of this reward, the statue of the ancient archmage who killed the Moon Men. The Black Ring was found in a native tribe that was conquered by the Holy Tribe. It was worn by the tribe's listener and was the symbol of the tribe's authority. Emily, who was commanding the giant elephant orders of chivalry to level the terrain, brought the Black Ring back to Firewood Castle. List did not immediately check the attributes of the ring after receiving it. Instead, he said to Emily, "The giant elephant orders of chivalry will be handed over to my assistant for now. After you finish your training with Ethan, come to Firewood Castle for this year's New Year." Emily's eyes lit up and she quickly nodded. "Yes, Emily, thanks Your Highness for the invitation." To be able to spend the New Year's with Her Highness at Firewood Castle was a very meaningful occasion for her. Emily happily rode on the chocobo Loki and left Firewood Castle for Jade City to train. List summoned the smoke mission and looked at the new mission. Mission: in the blink of an eye, you are about to welcome your 5th New Year's Day in this world. As you grow older, your strength increases, and your identity changes, causing your mentality to change. You are no longer the poor little baron who hid in the countryside to entertain himself. However, life still needs to move forward. Please wait for the New Year's Day to end. Reward: Unknown Reward. The long-delayed Unknown Reward mission appeared once again. To List, this was like relaxing. He did not need to worry about the smoke mission. He only needed to wait for the New Year's Day to receive the reward. The weather on Blazing Island in December was dry and cold. Although it was not below zero, everything stopped growing. In the past, the Moon Men were like World of Warcraft, hiding in their nests and waiting for the next spring to revive. However, with the arrival of the firemen, Blazing Island had completely changed. The long and dry winter was a good time for construction. Countless serfs worked hard. Felling trees, leveling the land, reclaiming wastelands, building ditches, building workshops, building wooden houses. After List trained his dragon's chi once, he rode on the invisible dragon bard and entered the material boundary. He was prepared to patrol his territory in the last few days of Sapphire calendar year 155. First was the Infernal Realm. This was the first city on Blazing Island, which was positioned as a big agricultural city. Its development speed had fallen behind the other cities, but it had the largest population. Forests could no longer be seen around the city. Almost all the trees had been cut down, and everything else had been transformed into plantations. Due to the large amount of water flowing out of the Whirlpool Cave, the water storage capacity of the Whirlpool River was abundant. Mages from the Guild of Magic who studied water conservancy had instructed the serfs to build an irrigation network in the vicinity of Fireforge City. The canals were connected in all directions, irrigating nearly 5 million acres of land. As far as the eye could see, there were white ribbons of water, enveloping patches of oasis. To this day, the irrigation network known as the Tinder Whirlpool Irrigation Area was still being excavated. This world was probably nourished by magic. The physical qualities of humans were much better than those of humans on Earth. They had more strength, fewer illnesses, and were less likely to die. The Moonkiller serfs who lived in the forest for a long time had better physical fitness than the Flame People civilians. There was also a team of trainee knights who were in charge of excavating rocks from the mountains, and an expert team of ancient mages who were in charge of transforming the most difficult terrain. This made the infrastructure construction very smooth. Even without mechanical equipment such as excavators and bulldozers, the efficiency was no less than China's infrastructure speed on Earth. This made List very satisfied. Under his influence, the Fire Kingdom now had the temperament of an infrastructure maniac. We still need to upgrade. The roads in the Tinder Whirlpool Irrigation Area are not good enough. Most of them are dirt roads. The drought in winter is nothing, but when it rains in summer, it will become a disaster. This is not good. List took out a notebook and simply recorded his thoughts. We need to upgrade all these roads to cement roads as soon as possible. Unfortunately, there is no asphalt. Compared with hard cement roads, Liszt actually preferred the asphalt road. Unfortunately, this world had never heard of coal, oil, and other resources, so naturally there was no asphalt as a byproduct. But it's very difficult to build a cement road in a short period of time. The cement renovation of several roads may consume most of the current cement workshop's output. The gravel road is not bad. A shovel-toothed elephant can trample out a few kilometers of country roads in a day. It's enough to pave gravel. After recording the road problems, he recorded the problems of the plantation. There were many problems with the plantation, mainly that some plants were not suitable for the climate of Flame Island. Once they left the influence of the cordyceps, they could not even survive. However, overall, the land of Flame Island was much more fertile than that of Black Horse Island. In addition, the Guild of Magic was developing various fertilizers, and the yield of crops per mu increased year by year. Rubber trees need to be planted in large quantities, potatoes need to be planted in large quantities, corn needs to be planted in large quantities. After the inspection of Tinder City, he immediately flew along Longshin Avenue to Dragon Valley City. Dragon Valley City was a major mining city. The 5 major mining areas of black iron, bronze, mercury, galena, and titanium mines were all high-quality and high-yield mining resources. In general, mining cities, pollution was very serious, but Dragon Valley City was much cleaner. The reason was very simple. All the iron-making workshops, copper-making workshops, mercury-making workshops, lead-making workshops, and titanium-making workshops all used fire dragon converters. With Leo's fire dragon super magic as the power source, no chemical dyes were needed. The furnace temperature was stable, and the efficiency was high. However, the construction capital of the fire dragon converter was not cheap. For these fire dragon supreme magic, Liszt did not know how much magic potions he had given Leo. The workshop is still too rough and not delicate enough. Next time, I have to remind the development committee to set up professional factories such as steel bars and wire mills as soon as possible. And now there is no shortage of metal. The Guild of Magic also needs to hurry up and develop steam engines. I want to build aircraft carriers in the future. No. Liszt fantasized in his notebook, it should be called the Wyvern Mothership, as a place for my dragons to stay when crossing the Devil's Sea. But it seems that a chi can make a lot of hard ice. When I'm with a chi, I can take as many dragons as I want. Leaving Dragon Valley City, he continued his inspection of the next stop, Jade City, which was not clearly located. This city was backed by Jade Mountain and was currently used for mining jade veins. However, there were also plans to build an irrigation area here and open up new plantations in the future. The cities under the Night System were mainly agricultural. The construction of Jade City was slow, so Liszt did not urge him. He rode the invisible dragon bard all the way south to Estuary City. Estuary City was a major port city responsible for trade with Tulip Island. However, the development of Tulip Island had been delayed, so Estuary City could not play its role immediately. Now, the city was targeted for coastal development, to find suitable shallow waters for breeding black giant clams, pink conches, golden-lipped clams, as well as giant algae and kelp in the future. He also wanted to cultivate mangroves in the swamps of the estuary and expand the breeding of green caterpillars, mallards, and flamingos. Liszt, who had the awe of the phoenix ability, was the king of birds. In the future, he would search for more birds that could be bred in World of Warcraft. Compared to hunting World of Warcraft to provide World of Warcraft meat, breeding World of Warcraft was more cost-effective, and this kind of breeding was sustainable. It's been a long time since I've gone down to the sea to search for sea elves and resource-type sea monsters. I'm probably like most native nobles now, setting my sights on the endless resources of the continent. I'd rather wage war and plunder than go fishing in the sea. He did not change the world, but the world had changed him. Fortunately, Liszt always had a vision that surpassed this era and this world. Conquering the sea is also part of my plan. The Devil's Sea can't stop me. After inspecting Estuary City, he directly traveled through space to Reed City. Reed City was a major trade city because the Heart-Reed teleportation circle was located here. Before the new teleportation circle was opened, Reed City would be the only channel of communication between Flame Island and the outside world. That was why the development of Reed City was at the speed of building a few buildings in a single night. There were too many people in the city, and to avoid crowding, List's request was to build tall buildings with 6 floors. The invention of cement, the use of steel, and the production of bricks all made it possible to build high-rise buildings at a low cost. Just as he was about to find some flaws in the development of Reed City, the ground in the distance suddenly rumbled as if there was an earthquake. He turned to look and saw a small mountain that blocked traffic. It was as if a great force was slowly pushing it back into the ground, and the ground soon became flat. Oh, it's a Chi. She's mastered the Earth incarnation perfectly. Chapter 974. He flew over on his dragon. Sure enough, a Chi was riding Charlie the unicorn, casting spells with the 8-dragon sword in one hand. With Charlie's enhancement of her high magic power to the level of supreme magic, she could now release all kinds of magic at will without the need to follow a certain esoteric meaning. Brother, a Chi has already mastered the Earth elemental incarnation. It's very easy to transform the mountains and rivers. If there's any terrain that needs to be transformed on the blazing island, just leave it to a Chi. After seeing List, a Chi said with a smile. She was a little tired from researching magic, especially the soul. She wanted to find another way to relax. I see. Let the Guild of Magic study the terrain of the blazing island and see how to transform it. But there are 2 places that we can try to transform first. Fire City and Jade City are mainly plantations. I'll leave the leveling of the land to you. By the way, are you sure the terrain that has been transformed by magic is suitable for planting? List thought of a problem. A Chi was stunned for a moment. Then, she rode on Charlie and landed on the hill that she had slapped into the ground. After a few tests with magic, she said with some annoyance, "Brother, it doesn't seem to work. Earth magic has the effect of hardening the soil. The ground that I've transformed is too hard." Not only was it hard, but it even showed signs of petrification. Basically, it could no longer be cultivated. Then don't be in a hurry to transform the farmland. Your Earth elemental incarnation is most suitable for building roads, canals, and cities. Brother, do you want a Chi to build a sky canal from the entrance of the whirlpool to the river? A Chi did not forget her previous idea. She had always wanted to restore the wonder built by the ancient magic shooters, the Sky Canal. Forget it. The Great Whirlpool teleportation formation is basically abandoned. There's no point in developing the Whirlpool Islands. If I have time, I think we can close the Great Whirlpool teleportation formation and use the natural node at the entrance of the whirlpool. It's also time to open the second teleportation formation. Where does brother intend to open the second teleportation formation? To Snowstorm Mountain Duchy. List narrowed his eyes and thought of a new natural node discovered 2 days ago. He had originally planned to send some supplies to Yevich Peanut so that he could continue to attack the Snowstorm Mountain Duchy. However, he had accidentally discovered a natural node located at the border between the Yellowstone Kingdom and the Eagle Kingdom on the legendary continent. It was less than 100 kilometers away from the Snowstorm Mountain Duchy. It was a dense forest. It looked ordinary, but List suspected that there was a mine buried underneath. Basically, the natural nodes were related to the supreme magic, which meant that they were related to the dragons. I plan to use this new teleportation portal to connect the Jade City and the legendary continent. I plan to build a city on the continent as a trading point with the Snow Wind Dukedom. Then let's set it up after the new year. Yes. After learning about a Chi's Earth elemental incarnation, List handed the pitch-black ring he had just obtained to a Chi to appraise. He touched the black ring that looked like a thumb ring. It looked like some kind of metal alloy, but it did not have any magic reaction and could not be activated by combat aura. The ancient book of knowledge touched the pitch-black ring, and very quickly, a ray of light blossomed. It discovered a section of moon language, metal alloy, equivalent alchemy. What does that mean? List was too lazy to use his brain, so he asked directly. Achi carefully examined the few moon language and said, "Brother, if Achi's guess is correct, this pitch-black ring is made from the metal of all the metal dragons." The metal of all the metal dragons? Just like before he obtained the jewel crown, he did not know that there were 36 types of jewel dragons, so naturally, he did not know how many types of metal dragons there were. He did not even know how many types of metal there were on Earth. After all, he had never memorized the periodic table of elements. He only knew that the Qinghai cowhide shed, that beauty belongs to you, and some common types of gold, silver, copper, iron, aluminum, tin, lead, titanium, manganese, sodium, potassium, calcium, cobalt, nickel, and mercury. However, there should be more types of metal dragons in this world than on Earth. After all, the Iron Dragon was divided into 5 types: Black Heart Iron Dragon, White Heart Iron Dragon, White Mouth Iron Dragon, Maw Mouth Iron Dragon, and Grey Mouth Iron Dragon. The Copper Dragon was also divided into 4 types: Bronze Dragon, Brass Dragon, Copper Dragon, and Copper Dragon. No one knew whether the Silver Dragon was divided into Silver Dragon, Black Dragon, and so on. Or whether the Gold Dragon was divided into Krypton Gold Dragon, 24K Gold Dragon, and so on. He was a little surprised. How much effort did the ancient magic shooters have to spend to gather so many metal dragons? I don't know. The ancient book of knowledge can't identify how many types of metal the black ring has. It only has a general concept of metal alloys. Achi shook her head. However, Achi has some clues about its function. It should be related to the legendary alchemy. Does alchemy really exist? Liszt wanted to refute that it was against science to turn a stone into gold, but this was a fantasy world. Everything was possible. I need to study it in depth. Then you take it first and study it when you have time. Basically, the 6 sealing artifacts of the ancient magic shooters are all equipment suitable for magic shooters. It's not fated with me. Liszt felt a little regretful. He also wanted to get some artifacts inherited from the ancient times, but the ancient times were a magic civilization. The artifacts, from the Scepter of Time, the 8-Dragon Sword, the Ancient Book of Knowledge, the Jewel Crown, the Black Ring, and the Scar of Fear, were all prepared for the spellcaster profession. At that time, the knight was just a magician's retainer, so he probably couldn't use any good equipment. As a result, Liszt's daily sword was only a great elf weapon, the Ice Soul Dragon Slaying Sword. He didn't get the Dragon Tooth weapon, the Dragon Elf weapon, or the Dragon Soul weapon. These Dragon Tooth, Dragon Soul, and Dragon Elf weapons that were comparable to the ancient magic shooters' artifacts were basically kept in the hands of the dragon-rearing family and rarely spread to the outside world. For example, the Sapphire Grand Duke only used a great elf weapon, the Wailing Cage Sword. Brother can use the Jewel Crown and the 8-Dragon Sword too, Achi said. But I can't use their full power. They are magic shooters' equipment after all. But you don't have to worry about me. I have the Bone Dragon Sword and the Spear of Rat Halos, which are far better than any divine weapon. Moreover, the Orichalcum Dragon Marta made me the Orichalcum Dragon Spear, and the Fury of Thunder are pretty good. The Fury of Thunder was the light green sapphire dragon Knight Carl Low Violet's dragon spear. The material was probably an alloy mixed with magic metal. It was slightly inferior to the Orichalcum Dragon Spear. The 2 dragon spears didn't have any additional attributes, but they had good magic conductivity, which was enough to unleash the Dragon Knight's powerful attack power. It was enough for Liszt. He would use the Fury of Thunder and the Orichalcum Dragon Spear in daily battles. When he was in a real battle, the Bone Dragon Winnie would make armor and weapons for him. The Fire Dragon Leo could also turn into the Spear of Rat Halos to help in battle. However, Leo's true dragon form was more powerful. The bone dragon Winnie couldn't fly, so she had no choice but to fight in her armor form. In the next 2 days, a Chi followed List around to modify the terrain of Flame Island. Her Earth Elemental incarnation was like a map editor, allowing List to happily edit the map and adjust the geography of Flame Island according to his imagination. In the blink of an eye, the new year arrived. Sapphire calendar year 155 ended and 156 began. Please remember this book's domain name. 9 Heavens God Emperor mobile version website. Chapter 975. A huge sand table was built in the hall of Firewood Castle. It was a topographic map of Blazing Island that a Chi spent half a day to make. It was very detailed, and even a small river and a small town were reflected in the sand table. However, there were some differences between the sand table and the actual terrain. There were 7 horizontal and 8 vertical rock roads. These were the main transportation routes of the future Blazing Island that List had imagined while looking at the sand table. There were also some amber roads that stored water, canals that connected the rivers, and so on. On the day of the new year, Knight, Viscount and nobles from all over Blazing Island, including Yevich who had just returned from a long voyage, and the Moonkiller tribe listeners, had all rushed to Firewood Castle to attend the luncheon. As there were more than 100 people, the dining hall could not accommodate them all. Therefore, it was changed to an open-air buffet. At this moment, everyone was gathered in the hall, looking at the sand table model of Blazing Island and marveling at the model. They had all seen the map of Blazing Islands released by the Guild of Magic, but the map was not as clear as the sand table. So this is where we live. This is the Blazing Mountain. The Jade Mountain is here, and I work in the Jade City. The Dragon Valley is here. You can also see the Galena. I'm in charge of this mining area. So our Cloud tribe lives here. But I've already led a team of experts to work in the King's City. Why does it feel so close after walking for so many days? This is a sand table, just like a map. It looks close, but it's actually very far. What a miraculous sand table. Only His Excellency Achilles Ides could create such an exquisite treasure. I wonder if His Excellency Achilles can make a sand table of the legendary continent one day. I can't wait to know how far Blazing Island is from the legendary continent. It should be about the distance from here to the castle gate. Is this a road? It should be a road. Does His Highness want to build a road? Don't we already have a few roads? The Oxtail Marquis quickly walked over and greeted everyone. He then explained to the nobles on behalf of List, although the development area of Blazing Island is not big, His Highness already has a general plan in mind. These 15 roads, 7 horizontal and 8 vertical, will be the main transportation network of Blazing Island in the future, leaving it to his father to send away the nobles who had come to the castle for the lunch banquet. List hid in the study and chatted with Achi, Chris, Emily, Di Maria, and Sassamit, Holy Tribe listener. At the luncheon today, I'm going to announce a plan to pacify the imbalance of the nobility among the ancient mages. Sorcerers are strictly prohibited from obtaining noble titles, but ancient sorcerers can be a little more flexible, he said leisurely while sipping the best green tea. The development committee encountered a problem. The ancient magicians were not satisfied with the current system of nobility. They wanted to integrate into the system of knight nobility. However, the knight system had excluded mages from the very beginning, and no country had ever conferred knighthood to mages. The nobles could worship mages and give them good social status, but they would never allow mages to touch the foundation of the ruling class, the nobility system. The ancient sorcerers among the Moon Killers did not understand the knight system well, and did not know the opposing relationship between mages and knight. In the few times of bestowal, the ancient sorcerers only received material rewards and rewards for their children, but not any rewards related to nobility. This made the ancient sorcerers who were trying to integrate into the Fire Kingdom very resentful, and there were many times when they resisted. It was better to disperse than to block. List decided to distinguish the sorcerers from the ancient sorcerers. Ancient sorcerers can also be bestowed nobility, but their children must practice fighting energy and become a knight before they can inherit the title. Also, once the ancient sorcerers start a family, they must also change their lifestyle and completely integrate into the knight system. Sasamet, who was also the holy tribe listener Su, heard this and asked, "Seiki, don't call me Seiki anymore. You can call me Your Highness like the other nobles." "Yes, Your Highness." Su quickly changed the way she addressed him. "Do you know what it means to change your lifestyle? Most of the ancient sorcerers have adapted to the castle life, but the training system cannot be changed. It's not just training, nor is it just adapting to the castle life, but integrating in all aspects, such as making a suitable surname, believing in the glory of the knight, abandoning the concept of tribe, participating in the noble society, and so on. Su, you have to understand that the moon killer's life in the forest is very backward, and the knight system is the bright future." "I understand, Your Highness. I will try to change my lifestyle, completely integrate into the kingdom, and become a loyal follower of Your Highness." Su was a qualified lackey, and he had seen the power of Seiki and Biglized, so he was obedient to List. Seeing this, List smiled. "After 3 generations, I hope that there will be no titles like Moon Killers, Flame Killers, Eagle Killers, Steel Killers, and so on. All the people living under the protection of the Flame family will only have one common title, Citizens of the Fire Kingdom." This was pure bullshit. Based on the color of their skin, the Moon Killers were destined to be discriminated against and be at the bottom. Di Maria echoed, "Your Highness has great ambitions. The Fire Kingdom will definitely gather a strong sense of unity, and everyone will dedicate their loyalty to the kingdom and the Flame family." The luncheon ended with the cheers of the original tribes of the Moon Killers. The first batch of Moon Killer nobles was about to be born, and they would enjoy the same treatment as the Knight nobles, except that their children would need to learn battle energy well before they could inherit the title. When these Knight and ancient sorcerers left Firewood Fort and returned to their respective castles, only List's family, Achi, Emily, Chris, Paris, and the twins, Lucy and Ruth, were left in Firewood Fort. This made Emily a little disappointed. Originally, she thought that His Highness had only invited her. She did not expect Paris to be there too. She did not care about Chris, the president of the Guild of Magic, nor did she dare to care about Achi, the magic shooter. However, she was quite concerned about Paris, who was once rumored to be the lover of the Lord. Vaguely, the way they looked at Paris was tinged with hostility. Paris, on the other hand, only looked at Emily with a normal attitude. She had already spent the new year with List more than once. As List's strength and status grew, she had long hidden her love for him in her heart, and considered herself a loyal follower. Of course, if the Lord needed her, she was ready to offer her body at any time. As for Chris, she might have some love for List, but her mind was more immersed in the truth. Lucy and Ruth were brought over by Achi. She admired the twins very much, and had the intention of taking them in as disciples and teaching them seriously. Of course, the twins were more like 2 servants to Achi, helping Achi with some of the chores that she did not like. In fact, List had originally invited the vice president of the Guild of Magic, Kenley, but Kenley could not leave. The mages in the Guild of Magic were basically single dogs. They did not have the concept of family, and naturally did not have the idea of celebrating the new year. They still did their experiments during the holidays, so they could not do without her and Chris's management. Chris went to Firewood Fort, so she stayed on duty. It's really enviable. Looking at the few women chatting with List in the living room, Levis, who was tightly controlled by Rolia, could not help but exclaim in admiration. The few women here were all people of high status in the Fire Kingdom. They were both beautiful and powerful, and were the targets of love for countless knight. However, they were all spending the New Year's Day in Firewood Fort. They laughed heartily at the few cold jokes that List said, which were almost not funny at all. As for him, even when he had a lover outside, he had to be secretive, afraid that Rolia would find out. Too embarrassed to enter the living room, he left quietly. When he turned around, he could not help but mutter to himself, "Can you do whatever you want just because you have a dragon?" Chapter 976. The New Year's bell rang 9 times. It represented the passing of a year and the arrival of a new year. There was no snow on Flame Island, and the atmosphere of the new year was not as good as it was on Black Horse Island, but the lively atmosphere increased. There were more and more elves, making the small fire castle noisy from morning to night. Chris and Paris had gone back. Lucy and Ruth, who were still young, slept in the guest room. Emily was also arranged to rest in the guest room. List and Achi hid on the balcony of the study, looking at the increasing stars in the sky. He hugged Achi and smelled the fragrance of Achi's beautiful blue hair. Illusory smoke slowly appeared in front of his eyes, forming a serpentine. Mission completed. Reward, a dragon elf. He raised his eyebrows and his heart swayed, but he quickly calmed down. The dragon elf was his, and sooner or later it would be his. There was no need to be anxious. Then he looked at the new smoke mission. Mission, the time to establish a nation in 3 years is getting closer, but the location of the king's city has just been selected. There is still a long time before the construction of the palace. Perhaps we should speed up the pace of construction. Please create a suitable foundation for the palace and the king's city. Reward, a new species of mangrove. The content and reward of the new mission did not seem to be too outstanding. Achi, do you think the power of fate can be controlled? He suddenly felt something and asked Achi. The power of fate represented by the smoke could only be seen by him. Achi was a little puzzled. Didn't you say that man can conquer nature? That's right. A person's fate, of course, depends on their own struggle, but also the process of history must be taken into account. But my achievements are already legendary. I built a kingdom from nothing. The era of the night has not appeared in the entire legendary continent for many years. Duchies were divided and united. There were often families who built a kingdom because they rode a dragon, and there were families who perished because the dragon died. But there were few fluctuations in the kingdoms. For example, in the northeast corner of the legendary continent, the Eagle Kingdom, the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom, and the Blast Furnace Kingdom had been fighting for hegemony for more than 1,000 years. The birth of the Fire Kingdom was definitely a strong color in the legendary continent for more than 1,000 years. With the singing of bards, it would gradually spread from the northeast corner to the far end of the continent. In the end, no one knew what would happen to List. However, he would definitely become the best material for many knight. Perhaps Achi was the same. She was a magic shooter who rose to prominence in the era of the shrinking of the weave, and was similarly a legend. We have all become a part of the legend. Achi, the next step is to make the legend more exciting. When the Fire Kingdom has stabilized, I will bring you to tour the entire legendary continent. Then, we will cross the Devil's Sea and look for the Lost Sun's child civilization. What do you think? Achi nodded. But soon, she asked, didn't you say that you want to conquer the legendary continent? I've said many things, but times have changed. If there's a chance, conquer. If there's no chance, then be an adventurer. Maybe many years later, there will be a legend about the king of adventurers left behind by us. Anyway, the world is very big, and I want to see it. Achi wants to go and take a look too. As they were chatting, a big elf suddenly crept up behind List. List. What's wrong, Carl? It was Carl, the giant Kojak elf. He whispered, Ella and Ash just fought. Carly and Yachty fanned the flames behind them. Ella was a thorn elf, and Ash was a pea elf. Well, what was the result of the fight? Carl said. Ash took out a rope to tie Ella, and Jia stretched out her palm to slap Ash, but the old butler came over and separated them. Otherwise, the house would have been smashed. Well, very good, Carl. Go and watch them again. Report to me directly if there's anything unusual. Okay. Carl got the task and flew back excitedly. He wanted to help List monitor these restless elves and maintain the harmony of Firewood Castle. Carl is very interesting, Achi said with a smile. List nodded. He is indeed a very interesting big elf. If I want to open an elven school, I will definitely recommend Carl to be the class monitor. He has the potential to be a class leader. But Carly, Yachty, and Ella will definitely not be convinced by Carl's management. It doesn't matter. The class leader doesn't have to be convinced by the students, as long as the teacher is convinced. Neither of his two dragon elves had the potential to be an elf butler. Carly liked to run around, and Yachty fanned the flames. Among the rest of the active elves, Ella had always been a butler. But her position was the catfish in the catfish effect, the bully and villain among the elves. Speaking of this, he couldn't help but think, will the reward of the smoke mission be a wild dragon elf or an evolved one? He didn't let List wait any longer. The reward of the dragon elf soon came to light. The great phoenix elf, Aenfant, had finally evolved into a phoenix dragon elf. List, thank you for your help. I feel great now. Aenfant, who had grown to a meter tall, had become elegant. Looking at the naked Aenfant, he asked, well, do you need me to prepare a few sets of clothes for you? Clothes? I don't really like to wear them, but I'm a knight now. List, help me prepare a few sets of armor. Aenfant thought for a moment and replied. Aenfant was no longer willing to fly by himself. Every day, he rode Goldie, Little Red, and Little Purple around, replacing List to manage the flock of birds in the Phoenix Parasol Forest. So, do you continue to live here, or do you want to live in Fire Castle with me? I don't like living in a castle. I'm a sky knight. Flying in the sky is my way of life. Go back, List. Next time you come to see me, don't forget to bring me the latest flavor of jade powder. Oh, by the way, I don't need this dragon scale anymore. Help me return it to Leo. Aenfant took out the scale from Leo's tail. After the successful evolution, the Phoenix Parasol Dragon Elf no longer liked the Fire Dragon Leo. Okay, I'll leave the flock to you, Aenfant. Don't worry, leave it to me. Aenfant has also become a dragon elf. Now, I have 3 dragon elves, 9 greater elves, more than 100 lesser elves, and many sprite worms. It's still not enough, not in line with the identity of a king. However, I have 6 dragons, hee. List felt quite happy. In a flash, they had already arrived at the Killing Moon Holy Mountain. Achi was riding Unicorn Charlie, observing the terrain near the Holy Mountain. She wanted to help List complete the smoke mission. How is it, have you finished surveying the terrain? List asked. Well, now that I have a general idea, how will Big Brother transform the Holy Mountain? The smoke mission allowed List to lay the foundation for Monarch City and the palace. List understood that the foundation was the foundation. After a few days of thinking, he had a preliminary idea. I'm going to pick an area with a side length of 10 kilometers in the valley at the foot of the Holy Mountain. When it rises, it will be at least 10 meters higher than the surrounding area. With a side length of 10 kilometers, the area would be 100 square kilometers, more than enough to build Monarch City. Then, he continued, the palace will be built on the Holy Mountain. The Holy Mountain is formed by 2 mountains side by side, forming an hourglass valley. I hope you can help me build a rock platform between the 2 mountains. I want the palace to cross the peaks of the 2 mountains. Chapter 977. Originally, List wanted to build a castle similar to Minas Tirith, the capital of the Kingdom of Gondor in The Lord of the Rings. It was the big city that was integrated with the mountain. However, the sacred mountain of the Moon Killer was not a unique mountain, but 2 mountain ranges crisscrossed side by side, forming an hourglass-like valley. In the middle of the valley was the entrance to the ruins. If he pursued the integration of the mountain and the city, it would be difficult to be symmetrical, so he planned to build a bridge-like support between the two mountains and wrap the entrance to the ruins into the future palace. The palace could be a building complex, built on the top of the two mountains. With Qi's magic to strengthen the mountains and arrange magic, the future palace would be absolutely indestructible. Moreover, he had the Iron Dragon and the Mountain Copper Dragon, so he could spend a little dragon's supreme magic to infect the mountains with metal, thus strengthening the mountains into an impregnable castle. The design plan had been chosen. List rode the Mountain Copper Dragon Marta in the air and watched, while Qi rode the Unicorn Charlie, holding the 8 dragons' divine sword and wearing a jewel crown on her head. She began to touch the magic net and cast powerful earth magic. Rumble. As she cast the magic, the earth began to rumble, and the place where the holy tribe lived was rising bit by bit. The soil, under the stimulation of earth elemental magic, quickly condensed into rock, piece by piece becoming a flat solid foundation, only a small number of places still retaining soil. These places needed to be dug for wells, parks, and even sewers. All day, Qi kept replenishing her magic, and at the same time, she kept raising the foundation. At night, the foundation of the capital was finally completely lifted. It became a huge high platform, 10 meters higher than the surrounding ground, on which the future city would be built. The solid rock foundation ensured that even if there was a major earthquake in the future, the city would not be destroyed. Seiki. 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 The Moonkiller in the distance saw the changes in the earth and the holy Qi in the sky, and all of them knelt on the ground, shouting the name of the ancient magic shooter ancestor, Seiki, which meant holy. With Qi's current strength, she can almost beat an ancient magic shooter, right? List exclaimed in his heart. The combination of the unicorn and the magic shooter directly raised the powerful magic ability of the magic shooter to the same level as the Dragon Knight. The supreme magic shooter and the high magic shooter were essentially worlds apart. High magic was just magic power, but supreme magic had all kinds of unimaginable properties. Roar! Marta was shocked to see such a change. It had always thought that it was the most powerful dragon, the representative of the pinnacle of power. It didn't even put the invisible dragon that could travel through space in its eyes. However, when it saw the power of Qi's magic, it had a huge impact on it. It turned out that it was not the only one who had the peak power. From today onwards, Flame King City will break through the ground. Brother, Qi feels like I'm getting stronger and stronger. I've mastered Water Elemental Incarnation, Wind Elemental Incarnation, Space Elemental Incarnation, and Earth Elemental Incarnation. The next step is for Qi to learn Wind Elemental Incarnation and truly master the ability to fly. Qi was mentally exhausted, but mentally, she was excited. The sense of accomplishment of personally transforming the earth, mountains, and rivers was no less than List riding a dragon. My Qi is getting stronger and stronger. List couldn't help but rub Qi's beautiful blue hair. It was hard to imagine that the little siren he had saved had grown into such a peerless beauty. Brother, you're not bad either. The Phoenix Incarnation is very powerful. If you ride a dragon, you'll be even more powerful. Let's not flatter each other. You're very tired now. You need to rest and recuperate. Well, when Qi wakes up, I'll help you transform the holy mountain. Qi yawned. She had consumed too much mental power during the day, and the energetic magic shooter was almost unable to bear it. Even when Qi woke up the next morning, her eyes were still a little bloodshot. Seeing this, List directly stopped her from continuing to release magic. No, Qi, you have to continue to rest. I didn't expect the full use of Elemental Incarnation to take such a heavy mental toll on you. It's okay, brother. It doesn't take too much energy to transform the holy mountain. That won't do. Let's recuperate first. This rest lasted for 2 days before Qi recovered to her peak state. Then, according to the original design, the top of the holy mountain was easily connected through the long stone bridge. This way, the original Hourglass Valley really became an hourglass, with only half a gap between the two mountains. This place is not bad. The valley is very shady, very suitable for me to live in. Bone Dragon Winnie also came over with List. Seeing the transformed Hourglass Valley, she wanted to move her dragon nest here. There's no hurry. The capital and the palace need time to repair. Your dragon nest can be moved here after the capital and palace are repaired. As you wish, Your Highness. Bone Dragon Winnie giggled. After becoming a bone dragon, Virginia seemed to have become a lot more open and began to enjoy her life as a dragon. She was always in high spirits. Standing on the long stone bridge, looking at the height of nearly 500 meters from the ground, List could not help but feel relaxed. Building the palace here is like building it in the sky. This is in line with my identity and can show my majesty. When I have time, I'll go around the palaces of the three kingdoms and find some inspiration. As the legendary Flame King, List had very high requirements for his palace. It must be more magnificent and domineering than the palaces of the three kingdoms. If brother wants to hollow out the mountain to build a castle, a Chi can also help. Won't you be very busy studying magic? Hee, the future palace will also be a Chi's home. A Chi likes to build her own home. Yes, this is our home. List smiled slightly. In this period of his life, a Chi was the most important family. When the time comes, we will personally decorate the inside and outside of the palace, build it into the most luxurious palace in the world, and become the light of civilization. In a trance. Smoke appeared in front of him. Mission completed. Reward, a new species of mangrove. What the new species of mangrove was temporarily unknown, but he could ask the mangrove great elf, Nami. She was the most diligent great elf in the castle and was opening up a new mangrove forest in Estuary City. Perhaps this reward was hidden in the swamp of the estuary and would be discovered by Nami at any time. With Nami's intelligence, as long as she found a valuable species of mangrove, she would definitely report to a Chi. At this time, the new smoke mission slowly took shape. Mission: perhaps you have not paid attention to the islands outside of Flame Island for a long time. At this moment, Anchor Island is being invaded by a strange creature. As the master of the sea, you should go and investigate the situation of the creature invasion. Reward: Evil Sea Spirit. Chapter 978. Anchor Island. Tulip Islands, the 9th largest archipelago, was located in the sea southeast of Flame Island. List and a Chi stood on the shore of Anchor Island, frowning as they looked at the blue sea. Simple and ugly shacks had been built on the surface of the sea. There was a creature that was similar to the ancient fish clown that he had seen before. It lived in these shacks in the shallow water region. Its upper body looked like a strange fish, and its lower body had webbed feet like a toad's. Its hands were also like a toad's, holding a fishbone-like weapon. Gwa! Gwa! These ugly creatures had yellow-green skin, and they uttered some rhythmic but monotonous words, like some kind of primitive language. Brother, these monsters are so ugly, a Chi said in disgust. She felt a little disappointed. List said he would take her here to see the sea, but she didn't expect to see such ugly monsters. They are indeed ugly, but what are these creatures? They are a bit similar to the fish clowns in the Temple of Fish Clowns. They may be the offspring of the fish clown race. But the necro fish clown that Virginia turned into was several meters tall, and now the monsters here are less than a meter tall. The difference is too big. List shook his head. He came to Anchor Island to investigate the invasion of these strange creatures according to the smoke mission's instructions. The reward of the smoke mission was the evil sea spirit. He didn't know what the evil sea spirit was, but it was very likely that it was these ugly creatures. However, looking at these ugly creatures, he really didn't know how this thing counted as a reward. These ugly creatures not only lived in the shallow water, but also constantly migrated to the land. Although they had no magic power and weren't fast, their strong arms could throw sharp fishbone weapons, so it was easy to kill World of Warcraft on the shore. "Brother, look, there's a fish clown magician over there," a Chi said, pointing to the distant coastline. List quickly rode on the invisible dragon bard and flew over. From the material boundary, he observed the ugly creature magician that a Chi had mentioned. It was a rather tall and ugly creature. Seeing this creature, List had to admit that it was very likely that they were the offspring of a clown fish. It looked almost the same as the necromancy fish clown in the Temple of Fish Clown, but it was much smaller, only 1.5 meters tall. Faint light blue mana retroaction radiated from his body, and the fish bone in his hand was also rippling with blue mana retroaction radiance. It was leading a group of clowns to capture a low-level water attribute World of Warcraft, Wading Leopard. Every time the wading leopard tried to escape, Magician Wuxia would cast a spell. It seemed to be the water spell, Aura of Water, binding the wading leopard. When the wading leopard released magic to counterattack, it could always kill 1 or 2 fish clowns, but more fish clowns pounced on it. In the end, after dozens of clowns died, the wading leopard was also killed. Then, the clown magician arrogantly commanded the ordinary clowns to carry the dead wading leopard to its simple shack. Similar scenes were happening along the entire east coast of Anchor Island. They were densely packed with ugly fish. They seemed to be organized in a tribal structure, with large numbers ranging from 20 to 30,000 to 4 to 5,000. Led by one or more clown magicians, they took route along the coastline and constantly hunted World of Warcraft in the forest on land. List only counted roughly, and there were at least hundreds of thousands of clowns. Have these clowns always lived here? He didn't think so. He had come here before to map the terrain and didn't find any clowns. The smoke mission also indicated that it was a biological invasion. In any case, these clowns had to be carefully investigated. It seemed that clowns had lived in the sea before, and only recently invaded land. From the gills on the side of their mouths, it could be seen that they were originally aquatic creatures. In the shallow sea, many shacks were submerged and only exposed when the tide was low. They were probably forced to invade land from the sea, otherwise they wouldn't live in the shallow sea instead of on land. So to find the reason, he had to look under the sea. With a Chi here, diving was no different from taking a walk. The two quickly dove to the bottom of the sea, and sure enough, there was an endless stretch of clown shacks under the sea. Searching along the clown shacks, List soon found even larger shacks. These shacks were inhabited by clowns that were 2 meters tall, and they had even more intense magic power. As they went deeper into the sea, more tall shacks appeared, inhabited by even taller clowns that were already 3 meters tall. Of course, these 3-meter-tall clowns were very rare, with only 1 or 2 in a huge area. But it was the different heights of these different species of clowns that made List realize. It seems that these clowns are indeed the descendants of the ancient clowns. That makes sense. If ancient warrior inheritors can exist, why can't the clowns reproduce? He just didn't know if there were Nagas and mermaids apart from clowns. Back in the clown temple, there were many Naga statues and huge mermaid statues in addition to the clown statues. Just as he was thinking, a Chi suddenly reminded him, "Brother, there is a high magic reaction ahead." List, who was casting magic eyes, also found the light of mana retroaction in the deep sea ahead. It was a rich black magic light, which was the dark attribute mana retroaction. Let's go and see. As he gradually approached, he suddenly found that it was a huge monster with a body length of more than 10 meters, the upper body was humanoid, and the lower body was like a fish tail. At first glance, the outline looked like a mermaid, but it was covered with sarcomas, its skin was dry and wrinkled, and it was 10 times uglier than a fish. This monster also found List and a Chi. One of its eyes flashed scarlet, and the other was cloudy white, probably blind. It opened its bloody mouth and spat out a black halo at List and a Chi. A Chi waved a water will wall to block the black halo. Because the unicorn was also galloping in the water, it still increased Qi's magic power. So even if it was just an ordinary water magic, water will wall, it still exerted the effect of supreme magic and easily resisted the monster's attack. It's dark magic, very corrosive, belonging to the high magic level, but the strength of this monster is much weaker than it looks. Qi analyzed. List saw that there were still a lot of clowns around, as well as leftover animal bones, and vaguely guessed that the reason for the clown's invasion of land was probably caused by this monster. So he said directly, "Qi, help me catch it alive, I want to study it." Okay. Qi waved her hand, and several water supreme magic formed a halo of water, quickly binding the monster, and no matter how the monster struggled, it could not escape. It could only obediently be dragged to the shore by the halo of water magic. Those clowns had been falling behind the monster, seeming to want to rescue the monster, but did not dare to approach List and Qi, and could only croak. Chapter 980. Do you think this is a variant of the mermaids? Looking at the extremely ugly monster, List asked strangely, because he found that the monster's outline was similar to that of a mermaid, with breasts and long hair covering its ugly, disgusting, and tumor-ridden body. Legend has it that mermaids were all female, with perfect breasts and long hair like a waterfall. And from the mermaid statue in the temple of the clown fish and the Naga statue surrounding it, it could be seen that mermaids were the kings of the sea races. The ugly monster in front of him obviously controlled these clown fish, so it was very likely that it was in a superior and subordinate relationship with the clown fish race. In other words, it was a mermaid that probably suffered some kind of mutation to grow into its current appearance, and its magic attribute had also changed to dark. Qi was also looking at the 10-meter-long monster. "Brother, now that you mention it, Qi also thinks that it may be a variant of the mermaids. High dark magic, tumor-ridden, rotten appearance, and the aura of death shrouding its body, it's very likely a soul mutation." Soul mutation? Yes, this is a new topic that Qi discovered when she was studying Lich Andi. There is a strong connection between the soul and the body. Once the soul mutation occurs, it will cause the body to mutate, but it is difficult for the body to cause the soul to mutate. So, what should we do with this mutant mermaid? Seal it on the beach, and then Qi will build a laboratory here to study the mutant mermaid and investigate its origin. As for these clown fish, as long as we control the mutant mermaid, we should be able to command them. What do you think of them as slaves, brother? As slaves? List carefully looked at these clown fish. Clown fish couldn't move easily on land, and their intelligence was limited, but they were very strong and had a good organizational structure. Once controlled, they could be used as cheap labor to do some rough work. So he said, "I think it's fine, and once tamed, they can be used for marine farming, and their role in developing the sea is much better than that of fishermen." Indeed. The trip to Anchor Island was basically a success. Sealing the mutant mermaid for future research, and the clown fish race would also be added to the list of taming. Most importantly, the appearance of the clown fish and the mutated mermaid revealed a lot of information that List was looking forward to. The ancient race had not been annihilated. In that case, the glorious magic civilization of the Moon Empire era might still be struggling at death's door in this world. Mission complete. Reward, Evil Sea Spirit. After capturing the mutant mermaid, the smoke mission was completed. Obviously, the clownfish's invasion was caused by this mutant mermaid. And this mutant mermaid should be the so-called Evil Sea Spirit. In the legends, the status of mermaids was much higher than that of the sea monsters. They were worthy of the title of Sea Spirit. A dark element variant mermaid was naturally an evil sea spirit. List had a lot of curiosity about the mermaid list, but he was not a research-type scholar after all. The research on the mutated mermaids had to be carried out by Qi and the mages from the Guild of Magic. Fortunately, the news of the birth of a magic shooter on the sea had spread far and wide with the singing of bards. Therefore, many mages from unknown countries were slowly making a pilgrimage to the blazing island. They would live on Black Horse Island for a period of time, reading a batch of unimportant information and rules and regulations of the Guild of Magic. If they were interested and willing to join the Guild of Magic, they could get a chance to go to the Blazing Island. If they were unwilling to obey the management and serve the guild, they would be repatriated, and it would be impossible to get the opportunity to cross the magic gate of the Hard Island. It was even more impossible to see a Chi on a pilgrimage. Even with such harsh conditions, a large number of mages continued to join. In Chris's report before the year, the registered members of the Guild of Magic had exceeded 3,600, the vast majority of which were magic apprentices, and a large part of them were magic apprentices trained by the Fire Kingdom. There were about 1,000 mages and more than 50 great mages. If the ancient sorcerers who had almost zero research ability were included, there were more than 10,000 ancient sorcerers alone, among which there were close to 300 ancient sorcerers who were at the level of great sorcerers. Although the ancient mages were far behind modern mages in terms of spellcasting and efficiency, their strength was increasing as they continued to integrate into the modern magic system. It had to be said that the magic dust made by the elves was too strong for magic practice. Therefore, even though List had issued a strict law prohibiting the production of magic dust by harming the elves, there were still mages who took the risk of buying sprite worms from some of the Moonkiller tribes that had not yet been incorporated and making them into magic dust to assist their own magic practice. Such mages would be executed directly after being caught, and their corpses would be used for research. There was no room for reprieve. In short, the discovery of the mutant mermaid and the clownfish race would inevitably attract a large number of mages to Anchor Island for research. A Chi would master the distribution of research tasks, and there was no need for List to worry. What he was worried about now was the new smoke mission. The discovery of the mutant mermaid is disturbing, especially the terrible results caused by the soul mutation. It seems to indicate that there is some source of evil power in the sea, polluting the once noble mermaid race. As the master of the sea, it is necessary to investigate the source of evil. Reward: the Devil's Trail. The source of evil, the Devil's Trail, sounds a bit scary. While a Chi was preparing to set up the marine laboratory, List was taming the clownfish while waiting to dive. He certainly could not dive into the sea to investigate the source of evil, so he had to rely on a Chi's ability. The mission reward is the Devil's Trail. What does this mean? Or what does the devil represent? Does it mean the Devil Sea, or some unknown creature? Whether it was the Azure Wave Sea or the Shell Sea, they were just coastal waters on the continental shelf. The real deep sea was the Devil's Sea on the other side of the continental slope. When looking for the Dragon Turtle Island, List and a Chi had approached the Devil's Sea. The weather of the Devil's Sea was erratic, and the waves were violent and frightening, making it difficult to navigate. After that, he devoted all his energy to developing the Blazing Island and plundering the continent's kingdoms. He did not investigate the Devil's Sea again, nor did he try to cross the Devil's Sea to find the Sun's Child civilization. Just as he was thinking, the tamed clownfish seemed to have found a good opportunity and directly pounced on List. Bang! List casually waved out a dragon's fighting spirit, smashing the pouncing clownfish into pieces, shocking the other clowns that were ready to move. These ugly, useless clowns were not very intelligent, probably a little higher than chimpanzees. They could barely be regarded as an intelligent race, but they were not obedient enough. Perhaps the magicians among the clowns, the magical creatures that List called clownfish priests, had a strong control over the clowns, so they did not care if they died. However, List used the dragon's deterrence to subdue them, but they were not willing to obey. In the past 2 days of taming, he killed about 100 clowns, but these clowns still resisted with red eyes, without any self-awareness of the slave race. The clownfish priests were the same. They only had a one-track mind and did not have the self-awareness of the weak at all. They even dared to wave their bone sticks in the face of the Dragon Knight. Bang! List was afraid of another clown that wanted to attack him. He sighed and said, "To tame the clown race, it seems that I can't just rely on strength. I still have to find a way from the mutant mermaids. Writing with illness, Lao Bai is suffering. Please count some tickets to comfort me. Chapter 981. The unicorn could not travel through space, but with its speed and Ichi's ability to control water, it could run faster than the speed of sound on land or sea. Although the Flame Archipelago was very large, it seemed very small when running back and forth at the speed of sound. Estuary City, Mangrove Forest. Ichi brought 6 space rings filled with materials to build an offshore laboratory. She stopped by to visit Nami. The hardworking mangrove elf Nami was working with a group of serfs to build a mangrove forest in the swamp area of the Whirlpool Estuary. After more than half a year of cultivation, the place was already covered with trees. Ichi, you're here. Nami waved her little hand. Nami, look what you brought Ichi. It's peanut nougat produced by the old workshop. Ichi handed over a small bag of candy wrapped in paper. Thank you, Ichi. It's very nice. I like this kind of peanut nougat. How are you doing here? Ichi asked with concern. Although Nami was her contracted elf, she was too busy to pay attention to her. Nami replied with a smile, I like it here. I'm building a huge mangrove forest. There are already mallards and flamingos breeding here. Oh, by the way, Ichi, I found something good. List will definitely like it. What is it? Nami led the way, and Charlie the unicorn followed behind. Soon, they came to a new mangrove forest. Nami pointed at the slightly different mangrove trees and said, Ichi, look, these are a new species of mangrove trees that originally grew in the swamp. They grow very fast and have magic power. Magic power? Ichi immediately cast the super magic, Eye of Magic. Soon, she found that this small patch of mangrove trees was emitting chaotic light. It was a new species of magic potion. Nami, you found the magic potion mangrove. That's great. In the future, mangrove forests can also produce magic potions. The value of magic potions was not obvious to mages. However, for a knight, magic potions were a symbol of wealth and strength, especially those planted by elves. The birth of a magic potion of a species of great elf was definitely a big event worthy of celebration. Ichi could imagine how happy List would be when he heard the news. So, she directly sent a magic message to the Reed City office and informed the development committee, Mangrove Forest in the Whirlpool Estuary, Nami, the great elf of the mangrove forest, found the magic potion mangrove. Send people to promote the planting immediately. The administrative office of Reed City was the office of the development committee. There was no need for List to personally give the order. After receiving the news, the development committee contacted the officials of Estuary City to take charge of the mangrove forest's potion planting. Ichi said goodbye to Nami and came to the port of Estuary. Several 3-masted ships were already filled with cargo. Seeing Ichi arrive on the divine unicorn, the crew all knelt on the ground and solemnly saluted. Kenly Truth bowed and walked over. Mr. President, the cargo ship is ready. She was here to assist in the establishment of the marine laboratory. Then let's go. Ichi rode the unicorn Charlie to the front of the fleet. With a wave of her hand, a huge current propelled several 3-masted ships forward like rockets. His speed continued to increase, and he finally reached a super high speed of 800 km per hour as he sailed toward Anchor Island. Soon, they arrived at Anchor Island. There were no more clowns in the place where he had chosen to build the laboratory on the sea. List had cleaned them all out. Since he had nothing better to do, he tried to tame the stubborn clowns. Unfortunately, he failed many times. He could only pin his hopes on the research of the mutant mermaids in the marine laboratory. When Ichi commanded the magicians and the construction of the marine laboratory was basically completed, he took Ichi and dived into the sea again to investigate the source of evil and find the real reason for the appearance of the mutant mermaids. The underwater world was colorful. Clowns of different sizes could be seen hunting fish in groups. Occasionally, they would even chase after sea monsters. These ancient races were full of vitality and there was no trace of extinction at all. It was unknown why humans had not discovered them for so many years. Or why the clown race, which was once distributed along the coast of the legendary continent, would migrate to the Flame Islands. Of course, now was not a good time to think about this question. List followed behind a Chi and the unicorn. He could not get the unicorn's approval and could not ride with a Chi. "Brother, this is the place where a Chi catches the mutant mermaids." Yes. This was a nest at the bottom of the sea, scattered with all kinds of broken bones. It could be vaguely seen that many of the skeletons belonged to land animals. In other words, those clowns caught World of Warcraft from the shore and sent it here for the mutant mermaids to eat. A Chi, can you sense the source of the breath of the mutant mermaids? No, the current is too fast, a lot of the breath has long been washed away, and the mutant mermaids should have lived here for a long time, the traces of their migration have long disappeared. A Chi shook her head. This made List very regretful. He wanted to continue searching in the direction of the deep sea, but the underwater world was too big, and it was too difficult to find any valuable clues here. Just as List was about to retreat, a Chi suddenly rolled up a stream of water and rolled a scale from the remains of the bones. After a little sensing, she handed the scale to List. "Brother, look, this scale is from the mutant mermaids, it has a strong dark magic on it. Brother, do you remember this pair of mermaid guard earrings? It is made of this scale, but the magic aura and level are stronger." She took out a pair of azure earrings from her spatial ring. The mermaid guard was a gift from Marilyn Red White Rose, and List gave it to a Chi, but a Chi did not like to wear jewelry, so she had always kept it in her spatial ring. The grayish-black mutant mermaid scale was the size of a palm, and it was heart-shaped. The blue scale of the mermaid guard was only the size of a fingernail, and it was also heart-shaped. The mermaid's protection is a mermaid scale that has been condensed. Its water element contains supreme magic. This grayish-black scale is a mermaid scale that has been contaminated. It only contains high dark magic. A Chi, prepare to sense the mutated mermaid scale to see if you can find its migration route. A Chi thought so because the scales on the lower body and tail of the mutant mermaid were almost gone. She used a little trick, and suddenly the grayish-black scale emitted a dim black light, and then the light pointed to a place. "Over there, there is a similar scale over there." List made a prompt decision. "Let's go." After a few minutes of traveling, they found a palm-sized, grayish-black, heart-shaped mermaid scale in the mud at the bottom of the sea. A Chi cast the spell again, got another hint, and swam to a new location with List. This repeated several times, and they had found a total of 5 scales. "Brother, did you notice that the color of these scales has dimmed?" "Yes, the scales were grayish-black before, but now they have turned gray. Let's continue to look for the next place and see what happened." Chapter 982. He found a total of 32 scales that had fallen off. The color of the scales gradually changed from gray to black, and by the time he picked up the 32nd scale, the color of the scale had turned light blue. And the place where the scale fell also extended to a trench, the edge of which was at least 5,000 kilometers deep, and the pressure was enormous. Fortunately, a Chi's ability to control water was almost perfect under the enhancement of the unicorn, and she didn't feel the pressure of the deep sea at all. However, List was a little scared. The sea here could no longer see the sun, and he could only explore the bottom of the sea with the light of the magic flashlight. A few strange sea monsters would sneak up on the dark bottom of the sea from time to time, and although their attack power wasn't enough in front of a Chi, it was still scary. The mutant mermaid climbed up from this trench, and it must have been polluted by some evil power that made it what it is now. The fish clown should live in the shallow sea and was controlled by the mutant mermaid to invade the land, which shows that the mutant mermaid hasn't been around for a long time. He said. Achi nodded and said, "Then brother, let's dive into the trench and search. Be careful." Okay. The depth of the trench was shallower than expected, about 1,000 kilometers into the trench, which was more than 6,000 kilometers from the surface. They had reached the bottom of the trench. The light of the magic flashlight illuminated the bottom of the sea, and they could see towering cliffs on both sides, with some strange small creatures swimming around. The atmosphere was gloomy, and some creepy sounds came from afar. Snort. Charlie the unicorn didn't like this place very much and snorted impatiently. List held a bunch of magic flashlights in his hands, so that the light could illuminate farther and see the environment at the bottom of the trench. Achi, on the other hand, held the mermaid scale and released magic to search for the direction of the magic power on the scale. Soon, the light on the scale pointed a direction to a crack on the cliff. "Brother, this way. Let's go." After entering the crack on the cliff and swimming not far, List was surprised by the scene in front of him. At the end of the crack was an undersea cave, and there were statues buried in it. There was a 5-meter-tall statue of a fish clown, and a 10-meter-tall statue of a Naga. 2-armed Naga, 4-armed Naga, ferocious Naga, humanoid Naga. Some of these statues were half buried in the mud at the bottom of the sea, some were broken, and some were almost ground into powder. However, List's gaze quickly went past these statues and landed on the center of the cave. There was a building that looked like an altar, and there were 6 statues on it. They were all statues of mermaids, and each of them was nearly 20 meters tall, about the same size as the mermaid statue in the Temple of Fish Clown. "Brother, did you notice? There are not 6 statues, but 7. Achi glanced over and found the incongruity. The altar could accommodate 7 mermaid statues, but there were only 6 here. When the 2 of them approached, they discovered that although the 7th statue was gone, there were many palm-sized azure scales that had fallen down. "It's the scales of a mermaid. It's very dark in color and has a lot of magic power. Moreover, it's a high-level magic power. Achi, do you think the mutated mermaid escaped from here?" "It's very likely." Casting magic eyes, Achi kept scanning the surroundings and suddenly found that in the center of the altar surrounded by statues was a spring with slow-flowing water, and the spring water exuded a faint dark magic. After List cast magic eyes, he also noticed the spring water. After seeing the dark magic, he understood what the source of evil the smoke mission was. The power that pollutes the mutated mermaid should originate from this spring, and Achi, I have a bold idea." "What bold idea?" Achi asked. "Of the 7 mermaid statues, 1 missing must have been caused by the evil power emitted by this spring. The original mutated mermaid probably represented a statue. As for the remaining 6 statues, they could all be sealed by real mermaids." "Sealed by real mermaids?" Achi was surprised for a moment, and then came to a realization. "It's really possible. It's said that the legendary Medusa has the magic to turn people into stone. Maybe these mermaid statues are really mermaids who have been sealed." All of a sudden, the originally ordinary mermaid statue became a treasure in the eyes of the 2. In legend, the magic of mermaids is much stronger than that of the sirens, so much so that the sirens are simply a legend among sailors, and there is not much circulation on land. But the mermaid is a great species that has been passed down since the era of the Moon Empire, the ruler of the sea. Let's ignore the mermaid statue for the time being. Achi, can you find out the source of the power of this spring? List restrained his excitement about the mermaid and focused his attention on the spring. Smoke had already appeared in front of him. Mission completed. Reward, Devil's Trail. While Achi was thinking, the smoke has been distorted and changed, forming new serpentines. Mission, now that the mystery of the mermaid statue has been discovered, why not reverse the stone seal magic and reverse the mermaid from the statue to the real mermaid? Maybe they hold the missing historical secrets. Reward, Mermaid's Heart. Phew. Seeing this new mission, List was unable to calm down. Even the smoke mission confirmed that these mermaid statues are definitely sealed by the real mermaids. Once the seal is undone, it will be 6 magical mermaids. No, it's 7, and a corrupted mutant mermaid. Just as he turned his attention back to the mermaid statue and fantasized about obtaining 7 mermaid followers and conquering the world, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him. Achi suddenly raised her hand and cast magic, freezing the spring from water into ice. Among the ice, there were traces of gray mist flowing. She did not stop. One of her arms switched to Earth Elemental Incarnation. She quickly released Earth Elemental magic to divide the altar into 4 halves and slowly moved it around. After moving the altar, it slowly revealed the black hole connected to the spring. It seemed that in order to suppress this black hole, the altar was built and the 7 mermaids were sealed. Be careful, it won't be good if you run into something evil. Brother, don't worry, Charlie can feel the power inside this black hole. It's just a pure special power, there are no evil creatures. Charlie also has this function. List turned his head and glanced at the unicorn with its shining horn. Of course, Charlie is very powerful. Achi looked a little proud. The unicorn Charlie was indeed a magical and enviably pure creature. She smiled. List did not respond. He was still not satisfied with Charlie, who forbade him from riding, so he directly picked up the magic tube and shone it into the dark hole. Chapter 983. The light from the magic flashlight illuminated the depths of the black hole, and he was surprised to find that it was another small altar. In the center of the altar, there was a chain made of dark magic, binding a strange and disgusting object. It looked like a pile of rotten meat, and these pieces of meat were constantly wriggling. What is so disgusting? Such rich dark magic, and it clearly has the aura of death, similar to the aura of the mutated mermaid, brother. I feel it, it should be this thing that contaminated the mermaids. There is a seal-type magic circle around it, maybe the mermaids sealed this rotten meat here, and as a result, the rotten meat broke the seal, and infected a mermaid into a mutated mermaid. List analyzed. He looked at the wriggling meat, and although he felt disgusted, he still wanted to go down to investigate. But before he went down, the rotten meat in the seal quickly condensed into the shape of a beast's claw, and then suddenly grabbed at the entrance of the cave, a strong dragon's aura emitting from the claw, trying to lock onto List. Dragon's aura? List's reaction could not be said to be slow, and he quickly gathered his dragon's fighting energy, blocking the entrance of the black hole, trying to stop the sudden eruption of dragon's aura and the rotten meat that condensed into the shape of a dragon's claw. But as soon as the rotten dragon's claw came into contact with the dragon's fighting energy, it quickly corroded the high-level dragon's fighting energy, and then grabbed at List with the same momentum. Brother, be careful. Achi hurriedly gathered magic. But the fastest to react was the unicorn, Charlie. The golden spiral horn on top of his head emitted a strong light, and instantly hit the rotten dragon's claw. Crack! Roar! An indistinct dragon roar resounded, and the rotten dragon claw was blown into pieces by the radiance of Charlie's horn. When it condensed again, it was pulled back to the center of the altar by the dark elemental chain formed by the sealing magic circle of the altar. It turned into a lump of rotten flesh, slowly squirming. It was a big shock. List let out a breath of turbid air, and then looked at the inside of the black hole with lingering fear. What is this thing? Why does it have dragon's aura, and why is there a dragon's roar? This should be part of the dragon, brother. Achi condensed a transparent water shield to block the entrance of the cave, preventing the rotten meat from exploding again. The supreme demon of the dark element is very obvious, and it carries the aura of death. It's hard to tell what type it is. It might be a dark dragon. No, I've read the relevant records of the dark dragon. Although the dark dragon is a dark-type elemental dragon, the dark dragon's nature is corrosion, so it shouldn't have the aura of death. Achi, you often use the 8 Dragon's divine sword, so you should have a deep understanding of the supreme dark magic on it, List analyzed. In fact, he could infer such a conclusion because of the smoke mission reward, Devil's Trail. He felt that the dark dragon was an elemental dragon and had nothing to do with devils. Instead, it was the rotten meat underneath that resembled the traces of a devil. Achi nodded and said, "What Big Brother said makes sense. It seems that this is indeed not a part of the dark dragon. Then, what dragon is it? I don't know either. I don't even know if it's part of a dragon. But in any case, the rotten meat sealed by the black hole altar was definitely a source of evil power and was highly dangerous." He asked Achi to add a seal to the entrance of the cave, hoping that it could stop it for a while so that he could find a way to resolve this evil power and investigate the true secret of the rotten meat. "Big Brother, Achi's sealing magic is a bit crude. It can only stop it for half a month, and the sealing magic circle below looks like it's about to be corroded by the rotten meat. This mass of matter can break free at any time. Let's take it one step at a time." List raised his eyebrows. "Maybe we should save the mermaids first, and then find out the origin of the rotten meat from these mermaids. Petrified mermaid statues, Achi has no clue how to resurrect them. However, that mutated mermaid might be able to purify the evil power in her body through soul stripping and see if she can regain her identity as a mermaid. Then let's restore this place to its original state first, and we'll go back the way we came." The experiment of stripping the soul went smoothly. A mass of twisted black and gray magic was stripped from the 10-meter-long mutant mermaid, and it was put into a glass bottle that contained the soul. This mass of supreme magic turned into the shape of an ugly dragon one moment, and then into the shape of an ugly mutant mermaid the next. It was very strange. The mutant mermaid form should be the original supreme magic of the mermaid, and it was infected by this strange evil power. And the shape of the dragon should be the biological form of the power itself, a special dragon. List couldn't help with the research, but his analytical ability was very strong. What kind of dragon could it be? When the mermaid wakes up, maybe we can get some information out of it. After the evil power was stripped away, the tumors on the mutant mermaid's body quickly disappeared, and the grayish-black scales began to fade, and spots of blue appeared. However, she didn't wake up for a few days, but her body gradually recovered, and she gradually had a trace of the mermaid's charm. Her upper body was in the shape of a human, but there were blue fish scale-like patterns on her body. Her lower body was in the shape of a fish tail, and there were new palm-sized scales. Perhaps because she had been infected by the evil power for too long, this mermaid's body was very weak, and overall, she didn't fit the description of the mermaid in the legends. She didn't have that kind of noble and insufferably arrogant attitude. Her current state should be similar to the state of Lich Andy after his dragon soul was stripped away, and her body has been hollowed out by the evil power. Lich Andy was already dead. After being used as a guinea pig for a period of time, he completely breathed his last due to the failure of his body's organs. The dragon soul of the sapphire dragon had also been purified, but it was still announced to the public that it was still under treatment, because the sapphire Grand Duke was still struggling and didn't want to die. As long as he didn't die, List didn't intend to return the dragon soul. The sapphire family wouldn't dare to ask for it. Then, will the mermaid also follow in Lich Andy's footsteps? List asked. Probably not. The physique of a mermaid is much stronger than that of a human's, and her recovery is also very strong. Maybe she will wake up soon. I have too many things to do, so I'll go back and busy myself for a few days. When the mermaid wakes up, notify me immediately. Okay. Without letting List wait any longer, 3 days later, the mermaid finally woke up. When List rushed to the sea laboratory, he found that the mermaid was lying naked on the beach, basking in the sun, and Achi was riding on the unicorn to communicate with it. The mermaid was a female, and the statue's upper body was clothed. The mermaid's clothes were long gone, but although she was naked, there was no revealing nature. After the tumor was eliminated, her body was left with potholes, and there was no beauty to speak of. Her face was also disfigured, and her hair was so sparse that she was about to go bald. Brother, let me introduce you. This is a descendant of the mermaid race. Her name is Hephaestus Bleage Green Valkyria. Gulvig. The name was about 300 words, more than 100 words longer than the name of the siren, which was about 200 words. Chapter 984. Gulvig, I'll call you Gulvig. Liszt stuttered in the language of the moon. His proficiency in the language of the moon was terrible. He could barely understand it, but he couldn't speak it fluently. After all, he didn't have many opportunities to speak the language of the moon. He didn't expect the mermaids, a race left behind from ancient times, to speak the language of the moon. Of course, the mermaids' language of the moon sounded different from the moon killer's language of the moon. Even a genius like a Chi, who was proficient in all kinds of languages, had to guess when communicating with Gulvig. You can call me Gulvig, the king of humans. Gulvig's voice was hoarse. Because of his huge body, his voice was buzzing. Thank you and Her Excellency A Chi for saving my life and freeing me from the evil curse. I didn't continue to be evil. Can you introduce yourself? I'm a mermaid. Before I sealed myself, I was the king of the Fisherman's Sea. I ruled all the seawater and islands in the Fisherman's Sea, as well as all the fishes, prawns, and water birds. So you're a respected king. Can you tell me how you sealed yourself and the situation of the sea and land in the era you lived in? Faced with Liszt's question, Gulvig pondered for a moment as if he was recalling the past. Then, he slowly replied, the Fisherman's Sea, the Great Western Nation, the Saltwater Tribe, the Deep Water Realm, the Trench Tribe, the Fugitive Nation, and the Lost Sea. These were the last 7 kingdoms of the mermaids. As we sealed ourselves, we were the last generation of mermaids. The mermaid Gulvig began to talk about the ancient past. Since the era of the Moon Empire, the mermaids and mages controlled the sea and land respectively. The human mages built a unified empire on land, while the mermaids scattered many kingdoms in the sea. It's said that in ancient times, there were 2 great empires, the Moon Empire and the Sun Empire. They ruled the legendary continent and the Malfa continent. However, when I was born, the mermaids were already shrouded in the shadow of a curse and lost contact with the outside world. My mother sank into exile not long after I was born, and I lost the ability to give birth to the next generation. The mermaids reproduced asexually. A mature mermaid would give birth to offspring when they were the most energetic. Normally, mermaids would only have one descendant, so the kingdom would continue to be passed down. Occasionally, twins would be born, and at this time, the Sea Kingdom would split into 2 countries. Because mermaids also had the risk of dying prematurely, their numbers had always been low, and some kingdoms had even been destroyed. They ruled the sea and had naga, clownfish and other intelligent races under them. However, when Gulvig was born, not only did her mother die early and did not teach her any knowledge, even the Fisherman's Sea Kingdom fell into a state of extinction. We are shrouded by the power of the cursed dragon. The 7 kingdoms have linked up and are trying to ask for help from the humans. But the continent is in ruins. There is no Moon Empire or Sun Empire. The great mages I heard about when I was a child have all disappeared. The continent was in ruins, the ocean was shrouded by the power of the cursed dragon, and the kingdom ruled by the mermaids was destroyed in despair. The Naga clan was the first to suffer. Although the cursed dragon is dead, its power is too great. It keeps seeping into the sea. The Naga tribe was the first to be polluted. They became the ghosts of the sea and lived in the deep waters in the east. Even we mermaids couldn't cross this dangerous sea, so we called the deep waters the Devil's Sea. So that was the origin of the Devil's Sea. Liszt finally understood, but he had more doubts. What kind of dragon is the cursed dragon? I've never heard of it. In addition to the metal dragon, gem dragon, elemental dragon, and sacred dragon, there are 3 kinds of evil dragons. They are the cursed dragon, the shadow dragon, and the silent dragon. But in the era I lived in, the evil dragons no longer existed. Only the cursed dragon died in the sea, and the curse has always shrouded the sea, causing the intelligent races in the sea to wither. Evil dragons. List heard about a new sequence of dragons, the cursed dragon, the shadow dragon, and the silent dragon. Gulvig continued to narrate in a somewhat chaotic manner. She did not know which era she lived in. It was probably an era after the fall of the Moon Empire and the Sun Empire. Because she lived in the sea and had never interacted with humans on land, the information she knew was limited. But when she was young, she heard from her mother and the other 6 mermaids about the brilliant civilization established by the mages. And in the era she lived in, the Sea Kingdom was facing the curse of the cursed dragon. Every day, they fought with the fallen Nagas who had turned into demons. Seeing that the Naga had been completely destroyed, and most of the clown fish had also been destroyed, in order to leave a glimmer of hope for the sea, we 7 mermaids finally decided to use our lives as a seal to purify the sea. Unfortunately, we could only purify and remove part of the power of the cursed dragon. With the Devil's Sea as the boundary, the coastal sea was purified by the mermaids, but the Devil's Sea was still polluted by the power of the cursed dragon. I'm afraid that the sea on the Malfa continent has all sunk. There were hundreds of sea kingdoms in their heyday, but unfortunately, many mermaids have fallen into demons. Sigh. Gulvig sighed, and sadness appeared on her pitted, wrinkled face. I don't know if it's good or bad that I'm alive. Is the power of the cursed dragon coming to this sea again? Seeing Gulvig's worried face, Achi could not help but comfort her. Don't worry, I've investigated the flesh of the cursed dragon, and I feel that it no longer has the ability to continue polluting. Countless years have passed, and the sea has enough power to purify itself. And look, this is the supreme demon of the cursed dragon that I stripped from you. She took out the glass bottle containing the supreme demon of the cursed dragon and shook it. The magic condensed into the shape of a mutant mermaid immediately turned into a cloud of mist. Gulvig's eyes were fixed on the glass bottle. It seems to be much weaker. In the era I lived in, the power of the cursed dragon was incredibly strong. All the creatures that had been polluted had fallen into demons, and there was no turning back. Your Excellency Achi, you are indeed a great magic shooter. List suddenly asked, Gulvig, since the power of the cursed dragon has weakened, can we save the remaining 6 mermaid kings? I don't know. You don't know? We used our lives to purify the power of the cursed dragon. We never thought that we could resurrect them, so I don't know if we can save them. Gulvig shook his head. She was still a little dizzy, as if she had dreamed for 1,000 years. When she opened her eyes, the world was different. The mages had lost their ruling position, and the Dragon Knight had established many human countries and ruled the continent. Now, they had begun to expand into the sea. Even the Moon Oracle had become history. Nothing could compare to the vicissitudes of life. Everyone, please vote for Lao Bai in the Golden Keyboard Writers Contest. Chapter 985. Gerweg had just been freed from the curse, and her body was very weak. She needed a long time to recuperate. List chatted with her for a long time. Although Gerweg did not have much information because the sea kingdom established by the mermaids was collapsing and isolated, she still managed to restore some historical truth. First of all, during the era of the Moon Empire in the legendary continent, even the sea knew about the influence of magic shooters. Secondly, on the other side of the Devil's Sea was the Malfa continent. There used to be a Sun Empire similar to the Moon Empire, which was probably a magic civilization established by humans. The Moon Empire and the Sun Empire collapsed almost at the same time. According to the analysis of the information, there was a great war between humans and dragons on the sea. The Emerald Dragon's hind legs were cut off, the Moon Killer who killed the Moon Dragon, the dragon remains in the Dragon Pit on Flame Island, and the origin of the Fire Dragon and the Smoke Dragon. The cursed dragon died on the sea and polluted the sea. However, that great war was the turning point of the collapse of the magic civilization. After that, the inconspicuous knight class rose in the legendary continent, and the druid magic, known as the Sun's Child, flourished in the Malfa continent. The sea was polluted by the cursed dragon. Mermaids, nagas, and clowns were on the verge of extinction, and degenerate monsters gathered in the Devil's Sea. The strongest of the mermaids can fight side by side with high mages. We are naturally the supreme magic creatures that you speak of. Just like you human mages, our supreme magic creatures mostly absorb the mana of the weave. Over the years, the weave has been able to provide us with less and less mana. Gerweg was very emotional. The last 7 mermaids thought that it was the pollution of the cursed dragon that cut off the connection with the weave. I didn't expect that the weave was shrinking, causing us to be unable to resist the pollution of the cursed dragon. Then, Gerweg, how strong were you at your peak? I was still far from being a magic shooter, but I could easily kill the super sea monsters you described. In that case, your strength is roughly equivalent to a domain knight, maybe a little more powerful, but there is still a long way to go before you are a magic shooter and a dragon knight. List could not describe Gerweg's strength well. She had supreme magic level, but it came from the weave. Mermaids were not creatures made of supreme magic. In other words, mermaids were a level lower than dragons, phoenixes, and unicorns. However, as an intelligent race, mermaids could also cultivate. A powerful mermaid was comparable to a human high mage. King List, I'm sorry that I can't help you. Please take care of the contamination of the cursed dragon and my 6 sisters. King Gulvig, you don't have to be so polite. This is my duty. Please don't call me king anymore. There is no kingdom in the sea. If His Majesty List can purify the crisis of the sea, Gerweg is willing to follow His Majesty and offer the mermaid's heart to rebuild the order of the sea. Gerweg stood up with difficulty and bowed deeply to List. Mermaid's heart? List raised his eyebrows and asked, what is that? The reward for the smoke mission was the mermaid's heart. The contract of the mermaid clan. During the era of the Moon Empire, many mermaids offered their mermaid hearts to human high mages and followed them to explore the truth. Achi curiously asked, is it the same as the elf contract? Gerweg was puzzled, elf contract? What is an elf contract? Those insects also have a contract? It was List and Achi's turn to be puzzled. As the king of the sea, it was inconceivable that Gerweg had never heard of an elf contract. You don't know about the elf contract? Although humans make more use of the elves, there are also many elves in the sea. Those elves can enhance the growth of plants. Have you mermaids not used the elves? Or do you also make the elves into magic power dust? We don't need magic power dust to assist in our cultivation. We mermaids are innately able to communicate with the weave. I heard that humans like to use elves to make magic power dust. But isn't it very cruel to use elves to make magic power dust? Cruel? It's just some insects. Gerweg was puzzled. How can you use insects to describe elves? Elves are beautiful creatures. When a sprite worm evolves into a lesser sprite, it will gain wisdom. When it continues to evolve into a greater sprite, or even a dragon sprite, it will be almost no different from intelligent creatures like humans and mermaids. List was speechless. He felt that the ancients of the magic civilization era had distorted aesthetic standards and unexpectedly looked down on elves. Gerweg was even more puzzled at this time. Your Majesty List, what are you talking about? What sprite worm evolves into lesser sprites or dragon sprites? I don't understand what you mean. Sprite worms can evolve, you don't even know this? I have never heard of elves evolving. They are just some small insects. They are the most commonly used cultivation materials for wizards. Moreover, Your Majesty List, I have never seen elves evolve. Although I have not lived for a long time, only 142 years, I have never seen any evolved elf in the sea. Hearing this, List and Achi looked at each other and felt that Gerweg was lying. They had encountered Parker, the giant algae sprite, in the waters around Black Horse Island. Gerweg had lived in the sea and had never seen any lesser sprites or greater sprites. This was simply a joke. Wait a minute, I will go and bring a greater sprite over. List decided to expose Gerweg's lies with facts. Achi said directly, "Brother, let Achi go and bring Nami over." It just so happens that Nami has recently harvested a batch of the mangrove potion. Well, very well, bring Nami over. He was not surprised that Nami had harvested the mangrove potion because there was a previous smoke mission that rewarded a new species of mangrove. With the speed of Achi riding the unicorn Charlie, the round trip would only take more than 2 hours. When the mangrove sprite, Nami, sat on Achi's shoulder, curiously looked at the mermaid Gerweg. Gerweg also looked at Nami curiously. "Is this the greater sprite you are talking about? A greater sprite evolved from a sprite worm?" The surprise in her tone did not seem to be fake. It was as if she was really seeing a greater sprite for the first time. Nami hid behind Achi's hair. She was afraid of the ugly mermaid. "Achi, what is it?" "She is the mermaid Hephaestus Braci Greta Valkyrie." Gerweg. "Gerweg, have you really never seen a greater sprite or lesser sprite? I find it hard to believe. Among us humans, although the evolution of sprites is a small probability event, lesser sprites and greater sprites are not uncommon. They are very common creatures. There are also many large and small sprites in the sea. I really haven't seen them. In the time I lived, there were many sprite worms in the fisherman's sea, but they had no other use except as food for some sea monsters. In the fisherman's sea before me, they would catch sprite worms to trade with humans, but with the sea being cursed, this trade has not been carried out for many years." Gerweg shook his head and said. "And after careful communication." Soon, List came to an amazing fact: in the era of the Moon Empire, sprite worms did not evolve. The evolution was likely to have occurred after the Great War. Recommending my friend I Am the Best's latest work, My Back Garden in a Different World, a very powerful book. Please remember this book's original domain name. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor Mobile Version Website. Chapter 986. Why Elves Could Evolve. This historical truth had yet to be discovered. In short, the Great War that took place on the sea definitely changed the direction of the entire world's civilization. But anyway. After all, List was not an archaeologist. He just wanted to develop the Flame Islands as soon as possible, so many doubts were put aside for the time being. I will help His Majesty List discipline these ugly fishes. Compared to the era I lived in, their intelligence has declined a lot, but the suppression power from the bloodline is still effective. With Gerweg's command, the millions of ugly fishes officially became slaves. In the Mermaid Kingdom, the ugly fishes were originally a slave race. In fact, the mermaids were the dragon-raising family in the sea. The Naga belonged to the knight class of the Mermaid Kingdom, and the ugly fishes belonged to the civilian class. The rigidity of the class solidification was much more exaggerated than that of humans. However, to really get Gerweg's loyalty, List needed to purify the power of the cursed dragon to prevent the leakage of the seal from causing the sea to be polluted again. The sea was now List's territory, so he had to purify the power of the cursed dragon. Achi stayed in the laboratory on the sea and planned the purification. With the ugly fishes as labor, not to mention a laboratory on the sea, even a city on the sea could be easily built. The Temple of the Ugly Fishes, a typical building of the Mermaid Kingdom, was a masterpiece of the ugly fishes. Of course, in the Mermaid Kingdom, the official name of this temple was the Sea Sacrificial Temple. The Sea Sacrificial Temple was the symbol of the authority of the mermaids. During the heyday of the Mermaid Kingdom, the Sea Sacrificial Temple was everywhere in the sea. All of them were built by enslaving the ugly fishes. Achi, you do research here. I'll go back to the Flame Island first. Let me know if there's any progress. Don't worry, brother. A chi will solve the problem of curse pollution. First solve the power of the cursed dragon in the trench. Don't touch the Devil Sea. Wait for me to make a decision. He was worried that Gerweg would trick a chi to solve the fallen mermaids, the fallen naga, and the fallen ugly fishes in the Devil Sea. Although he didn't know if there were still devils in the Devil Sea, it was better to be safe. A chi knows. So, List takes Nami back to the estuary swamp. Nami still has to work hard on the mangrove forest, while he is going to inspect the spring plowing work. Every year after the spring plowing was the period of sprite worm outbreak, and he would often take the time to harvest a wave of them. Most of the sprites in the wild were not of high value. Only sprite worms bred from crops were of high value. As a member of the nobility, even the dragon-rearing family couldn't do without the elves farming. After returning to Firewood Castle and resting for a few days, List received Yevich Waterpeanut's message from the faraway Snowstorm Mountain Duchy. Your Highness, I have already contacted the second prince of Snow Wind Mountain Duchy. The second prince is currently competing with the first prince for the title of successor. Perhaps we can use his ambition to secretly control Snow Wind Mountain Duchy. Tell me the details. The Duke of Snow Wind Mountain, Sarkozy Amethyst, has 2 sons. The eldest son, Sarquis Amethyst, is the first in line of succession. However, his biological mother's identity is somewhat awkward. She was once the dissolute widow of an aristocrat and had already given birth to a son. However, Duke Sarkozy took a fancy to her and married her despite the obstruction of the ministers of the duchy. After giving birth to Sarquis, the aristocrat's widow soon died. Duke Sarkozy then married another aristocrat's daughter and gave birth to his youngest son, Sasuke Amethyst. Second Prince Sasuke and First Prince Sarquis were only 4 years apart in age. Legally speaking, First Prince Sarquis had the right of succession, but because of his mother's identity, many ministers were quite dissatisfied and turned to support Second Prince Sasuke. Duke Sarkozy couldn't make a decision regarding his 2 sons. The first prince was unwilling to lose his position as successor, while the second prince was ambitious and wanted to replace him. As a result, the duchy was divided into 2 factions. Until this year, when Duke Sarkozy's health became worse and worse, the struggle between the 2 princes quickly reached a climax. In order to get support, Sasuke didn't hesitate to get involved with Yevich. He wanted to borrow the Eagle Kingdom's power behind Yevich. Even today, Yevich still used the Eagle Kingdom's banner. Oh, a melodramatic drama of brothers fighting over the family property. List actually didn't have any conspiracies in mind. He still preferred to fight openly. What position does the Kingdom of Yellowstone Plain have in regards to the fight between these 2? Sitting on top of the mountain to watch the tigers fight. Perhaps the King of Yellowstone Plain doesn't even care about the Snow Wind Duchy. The Snow Wind Mountain is located on a plateau, and it is indeed too barren. We should also wait and see who is weaker in the fight. It would be best if these 2 brothers could fight for 8 to 10 years. Then, during the chaos, we can infiltrate the Snow Wind Duchy. In the end, I want to control this country and use it as a buffer for the Fire Kingdom in the legendary continent, List said casually. It wasn't a very clever plan. It was basically a general policy, and the details would naturally be discussed by the Development Committee. Yevich replied, Your Highness, but I don't have much power to interfere with the internal fight now. The second prince is slightly weaker, and he hopes to borrow a group of high-end combat power from the Eagle Kingdom. I will consider it. Soon, I will open the teleportation formation between the Blazing Island and the legendary continent. At that time, materials and knights will be continuously transported over. Tell Sasuke to rest assured in his fight against Sarquis. I can even send a dragon knight to help him. On Earth, the United States did this, supporting a group of small countries and suppressing a group of them. In short, it was to cause internal strife in the small countries. It just so happened that Emily's cultivation had been progressing rapidly recently. Her high-level chi was about to reach perfection, and her run-in with the light green gem dragon Isin was also about to succeed. When the time came, the plan for the Snow Wind Duchy could be handed over to her to carry out. The Duke of the Snow Wind Duchy was still alive. Letting Yevich keep a low profile for now, Liszt quickly left the matter of the Snow Wind Duchy to the Development Committee. He leisurely toured the farmlands of the major cities, looking for breeding sprite worms. Naturally, he didn't slack off in his cultivation. He was diligent in running to the endless volcanoes to complete Leo's spirit imprint as soon as possible. During this period, there was naturally a supply of potions. What he was most concerned about was the potion made from the phoenix perching parasol tree. Your Highness, this batch is the Fire Phoenix Potion. Chrissy personally collected the potion refined from the phoenix perching parasol tree and delivered it to Firewood Castle. How is the effect? Not very good. Your Highness can feel it for yourself. After drinking the Fire Phoenix Potion and feeling the impact of the magic power, Liszt frowned. I thought the fire-attributed magic power would be very strong, but I didn't expect it to be so weak, even weaker than the effect of the Primal Chaos Potion. Yes, the fire-attributed magic power of the phoenix perching parasol tree is very rich, but the extracted potion never reached the standard. What about the output? The output is also not very high. So useless. Liszt rubbed his temples. The greater the expectation, the greater the disappointment. He thought that after the phoenix perching parasol tree great sprite, Infant, became a dragon sprite, the phoenix perching parasol tree would have great achievements. He didn't expect it to be so unqualified in the field of potions. Now, the meaning of the phoenix perching parasol tree was probably to attract fire-attributed birds. How many have you produced? They are all here, the first batch has 800. Well, put them here. Although the Fire Phoenix Potion was bad, it was still useful for training. At most, he would drink more Fire Phoenix Potion to make up for it. He brought the first batch of 800 Fire Phoenix Potions and quickly headed for the endless volcanoes to train with Leo again. Roar! Leo saw that Liszt had brought a new type of potion and was a little unhappy. He wanted the red dragon water. Liszt waved his hand, make do with it. Although the effects of the Fire Phoenix Potion are average, if the quality is not good, the quantity can make up for it. Just take the potion. Only then did Leo reluctantly swallow the Fire Phoenix Potion. However, after the potion entered his stomach, Leo's long and narrow pupils suddenly dilated, and his evil gaze was quickly replaced by surprise. He clearly felt that after the Fire Phoenix Potion entered his stomach, the powerful effect was not at all the unqualified potion that Liszt had described. Liszt, who was telepathically connected, also quickly felt the effects of the Fire Phoenix Potion on Leo. The surge of magic power was of a strength that he had never experienced before. It was not at all inferior to the red dragon water produced by the red and white rose family. It was even better. Chapter 987. Powerful. Liszt held the Fire Phoenix Potion in his hand. He was overjoyed. He did not expect the potion that he looked down on to have such a huge effect on dragons. Of course, it was only limited to fire dragons. After all, it was not a chaos-type potion. If other dragons took this potion, the effect would definitely be greatly reduced. Even so, the Fire Phoenix Potion was an infinitely valuable potion to Liszt. It was not inferior to the red dragon water. Because among the dragons under him, Leo the Fire Dragon was a big potion. Leo, now you don't have to worry about not having potions to take. The Fire Phoenix Potion refined from the Phoenix Parasol tree is specially for you to use. Roar! Leo was overjoyed. He could not wait to gobble it up. Liszt was not stingy. He stuffed a large handful of Fire Phoenix Potion into Leo's mouth. After all, these potions could only have a strong effect on Leo. The volcano super potion in the endless volcanoes has almost been used up by you. Now that you have the fire phoenix potion to replenish your energy, you can train in peace. Don't always think about the phoenix eggs. Roar. Leo expressed that as long as he did not lack the fire phoenix potion, he would not think about the sealed doomsday volcano anymore. The fire phoenix potion doesn't sound high enough. Since the red and white rose family has the red dragon water for dragons to use, the fire phoenix potion will be renamed to fire dragon water for fire dragons to use. He habitually gave this potion a new name. He looked at the phoenix parasol tree forest in the distance. The phoenix parasol tree elf, Infant, wore a set of exquisite night leather armor and rushed over on Goldie. A large group of birds followed behind him. There were super dragon beasts, fire dragon birds, super World of Warcraft fire ravens, and high-level World of Warcraft cardinals. They coexisted and lived in harmony. He didn't know if these three fire-attributed bird-type magical beasts had some kind of bloodline connection, but there was no problem with the food chain. As for other birds, even fire-type birds, if they dared to go near the phoenix parasol tree forest, they would be attacked crazily. List, did you bring me a new type of jade powder? Infant asked loudly. I didn't find a new type of jade powder, but I brought a lot of the soft purple jade powder that you like. Take it. List took out a bag of finely ground jade powder to reward Infant. The more he looked at Infant, the more he liked him. Not only could he plant the fire dragon potion, he could also manage the flock of birds. He was simply too capable. Unfortunately, Infant didn't like living in the castle. Otherwise, he could bring him back to the castle to be the butler. Currently, among the elves in Firewood Castle, the Thorn Great Elf Ella had always been the chief elf housekeeper, but she was unable to convince the others. The man-eating tree dragon elf Callie ran around all year round and rarely returned to Firewood Castle. The buckwheat dragon elf Yachty was considered a foreign elf. Her foundation was unstable and she had yet to integrate into the new environment. In short, there was a shortage of elven housekeepers. So much soft purple jade powder, I like it. Infant took the bag and laughed. Its cordyceps covered an area of more than 58,000 acres. The phoenix parasol forest was lush, and the fiery red leaves were connected together. From afar, it looked like a sea of fire. Coupled with the surrounding volcanoes, the scenery was filled with a unique charm. In order to plant these phoenix parasol trees, List had migrated nearly 3,000 people and built a small town halfway up the mountain, Parasol Town. I hope that in a few years, the phoenix parasol trees will give birth to more elves and help me expand the scale of planting. When that time comes, just this forest alone will be enough to supply Leo's needs, allowing Leo to continuously produce fire dragon ultra magic, benefiting the territory and providing unlimited energy. List looked forward to it. The energy needed for baking bricks, brewing wine, making cement, making glass, refining ores, and forging equipment would gradually be replaced by fire dragon ultra magic. When the steam boiler was successfully improved, trains and ships might even be built. When that time came, trains would buzz through Flame Island, and ships would whistle from the dock. It would definitely be a different kind of scenery. With a sufficient supply of fire dragon water, Leo's training was very cooperative, and the progress of the soul imprint was greatly increased. After training to his heart's content, List went to the Holy Mountain to inspect the construction progress of his royal city. A large number of Moonkiller serfs, under the command of the knights, shuttled back and forth between the high platforms, digging ditches, roads, and underground passages. The entire construction site was in full swing. Your Highness, you're here. The one who came to report was Jormaya Rammed Earth. He was not responsible for the construction of the royal city, but the palace. However, the construction of the palace had not started yet. Has the blueprint of my palace been designed? List asked. Jormaya respectfully presented a very large blueprint, which was spread out on the table by several knights. Your Highness, the first draft of the palace blueprint has been discussed by the master architects, and it has been temporarily created. We were planning to report it to Your Highness and ask for your opinion. The data on the blueprint was rather abstract, so Liszt was not interested. He mainly looked at the rendering. The rendering of the castle was magnificent, but it had no personality. It was the type of castle that conformed to the norm. There are pointed towers, there are magnificent buildings, there are neat battlements, there are continuous steps. It was built according to the topography of the mountain. The scale was huge, and the levels were distinct. It was in line with the style of an ordinary royal palace. However, Liszt was not satisfied. He said directly, "It's too mediocre. I want to build a mage tower here, and it needs to be at least 500 meters tall. I want to build a sky garden here, and I also need to dig a river and waterfall here. This place is completely hollow and connected by bridges. It's perfect to admire the waterfall. There was also the sky square where the dragon was parked, the statue that occupied half of the mountain wall, the Colosseum that could accommodate tens of thousands of spectators, the big bell that could be seen from hundreds of kilometers away, and the bonfire that never went out on the mountain top. There were many of them. All of a sudden, there were a lot of requests, and each request was very difficult. Jemiah could not help but show a troubled expression. Your Highness, we do not have the ability to build a palace like this. Let the Guild of Magic participate. If necessary, His Excellency Achilles and I will personally participate in the construction. In short, I don't need a mediocre palace. I'll build it however magnificent it is. You'd better let the design team refer to the legends of ancient times, and refer to the various magnificent buildings in the legends. Although he felt a headache after hearing Liszt's request, Jemiah still respectfully accepted the order. I'll contact the Guild of Magic right now and find all the magnificent buildings in the legends. After comparing them, I'll redesign a new palace blueprint. Go. He sent Jemiah away. Liszt stood halfway up the holy mountain, looking at the connected holy mountain. His mind was still constantly sketching what the palace would look like after it was completed. After a while, a knight galloped halfway up the mountain. When he was still a distance away, the knight flew down from his horse and quickly rushed to Liszt. He knelt on one knee and reported, Your Highness, we have received a message from the Thorn Castle. The messenger of the Grand Duchy of Sapphire has submitted an obituary to the castle. Sapphire Grand Duke died on January 18 in the Blue Sky Mountain Palace. Chapter 988. Andrew Sapphire, the 5th Grand Duke of the Grand Duchy of Sapphire and the Knight of the Sapphire Dragon, left this world in January before the winter of 156 of the Sapphire calendar had passed. He reigned for nearly 30 years. Although he did not write many legendary chapters, he was considered a wise ruler. In the last 5 years of his life, too many stories had happened. Marquis Bull rebelled, the Sapphire Dragon suffered heavy losses, the Eagle Kingdom invaded, stirring up a dragon-slaying war on the sea, and almost dying tragically. A dragon-slaying war broke out between the Eagle Kingdom and the Fire Kingdom, and the Sapphire family was forced to change lords. Although the Sapphire family was in a precarious situation in these 5 years, Grand Duke Andrew managed to maintain the Sapphire family as a dragon-rearing family. The hero of a generation has finally left. Marquis Oxtail Lee William Tulip, after receiving the news, let out a long sigh. Nearly 20 years of friendship between monarch and vassal could not be put down so easily. Now that he heard of Grand Duke Andrew's passing, his heart was filled with mixed feelings. When he was young, his father died in battle during a development order. Thereafter, he inherited the title and followed Grand Duke Andrew. Every year, he would go to the Blue Sky Palace and drive for the Grand Duke. With the rise of his second son, Liszt, the Tulip family left their status as followers of the Sapphire family and migrated to the Fire Islands to develop. He and Grand Duke Andrew still maintained a close relationship. In contrast to his heaviness, Liszt said lightly, Father, hand over the official business in your hands to Di Maria. Let's go mourn Grand Duke Andrew together. Although he had joked with Grand Duke Andrew before, Liszt had never had the camaraderie of a follower. Naturally, he would not grieve for the other's passing. Moreover, he owed Sapphire's dragon soul to Grand Duke Andrew to death first so that he could achieve perfect control of the Grand Duchy of Sapphire. Compared to Grand Duke Andrew, First Prince Anthony's talent was not outstanding enough and could not escape his control. "Will you bring the dragon soul along?" Lee Williams suddenly asked. "Why do you ask, father?" "Grand Duke Andrew has passed away. The Sapphire family will no longer have enough means to deal with the Fire Kingdom and the Iron Ridge Kingdom. I don't think it is necessary for Anthony to continue suffering the soul tearing." He had no intention of Anthony to death, so Liszt nodded immediately. "I will bring the dragon's soul to heal Sapphire. However, father can have a chat with Anthony and ask him to demote himself to a duke. Furthermore, he has to cooperate with the Fire Kingdom's military operations. Do you still want to issue an expansion order in the name of the Sapphire Grand Duchy?" "Yes. You know that farming takes too long. You know, war, and is Andrew. Family is Sapphire Kingdom. It Dragon Kingdom of Prince of Andrew, Dragon William, and Duke Dragon. If we continue to oppress the Eagle Kingdom like this, I'm worried that it will rebound and stimulate the possibility of the Eagle Kingdom fighting us to the death. Father, Dragon of Sapphire Dragon, Dragon, Prince Dragon, King is, Sapphire Dragon, Prince. As long as I can control the situation, Eagle Kingdom will be cut off by me sooner or later." Liszt smiled. The Eagle royal family wanted to show weakness to the enemy and incite the three kingdoms to work together. It was a perfect match for his strategy of boiling the frog in warm water. As long as the other party didn't resist, he wouldn't stop slicing the meat. Perhaps by the time the three great kingdoms reacted, the Flame Kingdom would have already beautifully turned around. The Flame family would probably have become a top-notch existence that the three great kingdoms couldn't shake. After all, Liszt was riding a dragon at the rate of 2 to 3 dragons a year. Dragon elves and big elves did not grow as fast as dragons. Lee William looked at his high-spirited second son and sighed in his heart that he was behind the times. He had not been so radical in thinking for a long time. If we are going to fight against the Eagle Kingdom, should we try to be on good terms with the Yellowstone Kingdom and not offend the royal family? Father, I don't want to get in touch with the Yellowstone Kingdom. I just want to control the Snowstorm Duchy as a buffer to establish a foothold in the legendary continent. The Grey Iron Duchy is too far away and cannot be counted on. The Grand Duchy of Sapphire is located overseas and cannot be used as a proxy. The best option is the Snowstorm Duchy." Lee William did not say anything else. Although he was a father, the decision-making power was in Liszt's hands. Moreover, he did not think that his vision was better than that of the Dragon Knight. After chatting for a while, the father and son walked out of the study and saw Madame Penelope walking towards them. "Mother. Grandmother. Lee William, Liszt, is it true that Duke Andrew has passed away?" Madame Penelope asked with concern. "Yes, mother." Sigh. After receiving confirmation, Madame Penelope sighed faintly. How could Duke Andrew pass away at such a young age? He is the pillar of the Grand Duchy of Sapphire. I, an old woman, have not even stepped into the soil, yet he, the monarch of a kingdom and a dignified dragon knight, has already stepped into the soil. Lee William consoled her. After all, even the dragon knight cannot reverse the course of life and death. When you and Liszt go to pay your respects, don't forget to comfort Madame Sarite for me. Although it is difficult to live alone, she still has the eldest prince and the second prince to look after her. Many years ago, I accompanied Madame Sarite in the palace. She was so beautiful at that time, but in the blink of an eye, everyone is half buried. When one was old, they liked to reminisce and sigh with emotion. The death of Duke Andrew had touched Madame Penelope greatly and she talked a lot about it. However, for most people, the death of Duke Andrew did not bring about any restlessness. In the Fire Kingdom, except for a small number of knights who would talk about the Grand Duke when they went to the tavern to drink, the other nobles were completely indifferent. They were basically knights who had sought refuge with the Eagle Kingdom. They only felt disgust towards the Sapphire Grand Duke and did not have any cordial feelings towards him. The commoners were similarly cold. Many commoners might not even know the Grand Duke except for the Lord. As for the Moon Killers, they did not even know that there were humans outside the forest a few years ago. In short, the news of the death of Sapphire Grand Duke Andrew Sapphire did not cause any waves in the Fire Kingdom. The construction of the country was still vigorous and did not stop for even a moment. Under such circumstances, List brought a chi back from the marine laboratory. She brought the dragon soul of the Sapphire Dragon and met up with her father Li William. Riding the invisible dragon Bard, the grey-mouthed iron dragon Aun, and possessing the fire dragon Leo and the bone dragon Winnie, they went straight to the Blue Sky Mountain Palace. All the members of the Sapphire family who had received the notice, under the leadership of Madame Sarit, solemnly welcomed List and his morning team. "Thank you, Your Majesty List, for coming. It's a pity that Andrew can no longer personally welcome Your Majesty." Madame Sarit bowed, followed by the eldest prince and the second prince. At the moment, without being conferred a title by the nominal suzerain of the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom, the eldest prince could not inherit the title of Sapphire Grand Duke. List helped Madame Sarit up and said solemnly, "Madam, please restrain your grief." Chapter 989. Cousin, long time no see. In the Blue Sky Mountain Palace, List saw his cousin Meopel Longtaro. As the son-in-law of Grand Duke Andrew, he would definitely come to the funeral to help. Meopel bowed, "Your Majesty. Is there a need to be polite with me? Just call me List in private." List had a very good impression of Longtaro's family, and his brotherly relationship with Meopel was far better than that of Levis. "Angela, didn't you give birth to a daughter called Marentz?" "Yes, Marentz Longtaro." Meopel called for a servant and had the servant call Angela and bring his daughter over. "Unfortunately, it is not a boy. But thanks to the homunculus potion you sent, Angela and I have been working hard and are pregnant again." Aristocratic families naturally needed male heirs, otherwise, the family's inheritance would be severed sooner or later. There were also female heirs, but they were very few. After a while, Angela rushed over with her daughter, who was not yet 1 year old. Little Marentz, who was sleeping in her mother's arms, looked chubby. At present it was still unclear whether Meopel or Angela had inherited his looks. The birth of this child made her parents mature rapidly. Meopel shed his childishness and Angela became dignified. List could see the love in the eyes of the two of them when they looked at each other. This was very good. He had always been worried that his cousin would wear a colored hat, but now he could rest assured. "List, will you stay in the Blue Sky Mountain Palace for a few days this time to offer your condolences?" Angela took the teapot handed over by a palace servant and personally brewed a cup of green tea for List. "After I discuss some matters with Anthony, I have to hurry back. There are too many things waiting for me to deal with in the Flame Islands. However, my father will stay in the Blue Sky Mountain Palace. When the envoys of the three kingdoms arrive, I will rush over to attend Grand Duke Andrew's funeral." Meopel asked, "When will the Flame Islands be open to the public?" At present, the Flame Islands were in a closed state, and there was a strict procedure to enter or exit. After the founding of the country, the teleportation array will be opened. The merchants and envoys of the various countries will be able to enter and leave the Flame Islands freely. If cousin wants to take a look around, that's fine too. I'll let Levis accompany you. Actually, there's nothing to keep confidential about the Flame Archipelago. It's just that to reduce the infiltration of the three kingdoms, we've sealed off the external channels." "I understand. Right now, the Fire Kingdom is still very young. We do need to guard against the infiltration of the three great kingdoms. In fact, I just want to see the magic transmission array. This is a legendary and great magic that can only be revived in the hands of high mages. Miopal exclaimed in admiration. In fact, it wasn't just him. Anyone who knew of the existence of the Heartweed teleportation formation wanted to come and take a look. Many knight and spellcasters chose to seek refuge in the Fire Kingdom in order to travel through the teleportation circle once. List said casually, when Andrew's funeral is over, you can go with Angela and bring little Marins to Firewood Castle for a few days. I only need to use the teleportation array once. Don't break the rules of the Fire Kingdom just because we are relatives. Miopal didn't want List to make an exception. After the Flame Kingdom is established, Angie and I will go to the Flame Archipelago to have fun. After the luncheon, Anthony finally found an opportunity to invite List to a separate study to discuss matters. Your Majesty, before my father died, he left behind a letter for me to personally deliver to you. After opening the letter, List quickly finished reading the short letter. In the letter, Andrew mainly mentioned two things. One was that Anthony would inherit the title of Grand Duke and continue to fulfill the agreement between the followers of the Sapphire family and the Flame family. Once the Fire Kingdom was established, he would immediately announce it to the public. The other was the problem of the Sapphire Dragon. With the death of Grand Duke Andrew, the Sapphire Dragon's soul would be missing and would soon deteriorate. He hoped that List could treat the Sapphire Dragon as soon as possible. For this reason, the Sapphire family was willing to offer the greatest sincerity to help the Fire Kingdom develop. After reading the letter, List pretended to ponder for a moment before slowly opening his mouth. Anthony, the Sapphire family is following me. I will not let the Sapphire family decline. The Sapphire Dragon will definitely be cured. This time, I have come with Achilles to stabilize the Sapphire Dragon. Thank you, Your Majesty, for your help. Anthony will follow behind Your Majesty without wavering. Anthony knelt on one knee, expressing his great determination. Please rise. After helping Anthony up, List continued, in fact, we have already extracted the soul of the Sapphire Dragon. However, because the soul has been fused with Lich Andy for too long, it needs some time to purify. The purification should be completed in another half a month. Stabilizing the Sapphire Dragon for a month is enough. Anthony was overjoyed when he heard this. He quickly asked with hope, Your Majesty, do you think I can take advantage of the Sapphire Dragon's soul being damaged to become a Sapphire Dragon Knight and then heal the Sapphire Dragon? He had a good plan. He wanted to become a Dragon Knight. List just smiled. Grand Duke Andrew sacrificed his soul to barely become a Dragon Knight. If you want to become a Dragon Knight, you will definitely have to sacrifice your soul. By the time I heal the Sapphire Dragon, your soul will not be back. Without the dragon to sustain it, you may soon die because of the loss of your soul. Anthony smiled awkwardly and no longer mentioned the Dragon Knight. He himself also felt that this was wishful thinking. If it was so easy to be a Dragon Knight, the three kingdoms would not only have a few Dragon Knights. Probably because he saw List in front of him riding a dragon so casually, he also became arrogant and felt that riding a dragon was a piece of cake. Chi made her move. A few simple magic circles involving the soul stopped the deterioration of the Sapphire Dragon's injury. In fact, the dragon soul was in her body and could heal the Sapphire Dragon at any time. However, List did not want to be too deliberate and let people think that he was waiting for Grand Duke Andrew's death, so he wanted to delay it. At the same time, he also judged the attitude of the Sapphire family, whether they would follow him wholeheartedly or waver between the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom and the Fire Kingdom. Judging from the current situation, Anthony knew his place and did not have any other thoughts. Immediately, leaving Oxtail Marquis to represent him, List and Chi left the Blue Sky Mountain Palace and quickly returned to the Fire Islands. Chi had to continue to study the purification method of the Cursed Dragon in the laboratory at sea and try to reverse the remaining 6 mermaids who sealed themselves. List struck while the iron was hot. With the help of the Fire Dragon, he practiced with Leo to his heart's content, striving to complete the soul imprint as soon as possible. Time flew by. January of 156 of the Sapphire calendar came to an end and February arrived. Two happy events happened one after another. Leo's soul imprint was completed during List's day and night practice. He became a fire dragon knight at the perfect stage. He only needed to wait until he reached adulthood to reach the peak of his combat power. At the same time, Emily's advanced battle energy finally reached the perfect stage and officially obtained the recognition of the light green sapphire dragon. She launched a dragon-slaying battle and won. She became the second dragon knight of the Fire Kingdom and the first female dragon knight in the legendary continent. Moreover, she was a 15-year-old dragon knight that had never appeared before. Chapter 990. The sky was high and the clouds were wide. Emily stood on a huge light green gem and stared at List, who was wearing a silver knight armor and wielding a sword with one hand. Her eyes were filled with respect and admiration. However, List's eyes seemed to be staring into the void. His coldness revealed boundless penetrative power, as if he could see through people's hearts. He did not say anything. He only raised the ice soul dragon-slaying sword with both hands and slowly handed it to Emily. Then, he nodded slightly. Then, his body began to condense into a light green gem and kept growing. Soon, he became a towering statue that stood in the center of this world. The light green gem dragon Ethan glanced at the statue of List. He flapped his wings and came before Emily. Emily took a deep breath and flew onto the dragon tooth platform on Ethan's back. Then, the human and dragon charged into the sky. Under the statue's indifferent gaze, they flew to the brightest spot in the sky and suddenly disappeared. Roar! An earth-shattering dragon roar sounded. Emily suddenly opened her eyes and realized that the entire world had changed colors. She could already experience the vision of a dragon and observe this familiar yet strange world. Combat energy and dragon magic mixed and refined, continuously increasing her strength. She experienced the power of a dragon knight. I did it. I became a light green gem dragon knight. I did not disappoint your highness. Now, I am a dragon knight, the first female dragon knight in the legendary continent. Emily really wanted to sing loudly, but a long-time habit made her suppress any sound. She only rode the dragon and soared into the sky excitedly. She would reach the top and look down on all the mountains. As a dragon knight, Emily finally saw List's back. She silently followed him on the path, and did not fall further and further behind. Your Highness. After returning to Firewood Castle, she reported the process and feelings of riding the dragon to List in detail. The bone wine suppressed Ethan's power, and his highness' soul imprint taught me how to fight. Only in the battle of the soul could I perform well and defeat Ethan's soul projection. Well done, Emily. I've been looking forward to this day ever since I absolutely nurtured you. List wasn't stingy with his praise. You have now become a part of the legend of the legendary continent. I don't know if this is the youngest record for a 15-year-old dragon knight, but a female dragon knight is unique. Emily smiled reservedly. She finally had the confidence to look into List's eyes and express herself without any scruples. Everything that belongs to Emily belongs to your highness. List was startled by her bold and fiery gaze. However, he had been through a lot, so he calmly responded to the girl's passion and continued, You are not of age yet. As the second dragon knight of the Fire Kingdom, you need to take on more important responsibilities and enjoy better treatment. I will follow your arrangements, your highness. Then, I will confer you the title of Marquis today. You and Ethan will still be stationed in Jade Stone City. From now on, Jade Stone City will build a teleportation circle that connects to the legendary continent. This teleportation circle will be handed over to you. Of course, the Fire Kingdom has not been built yet. Your current task is to cooperate with the construction of the territory. I understand. Other than the fiery gaze in Emily's eyes, she didn't become arrogant because she became a dragon knight. The more she understood the power of a dragon knight, the more she felt that list was unfathomable. A knight riding on 6 dragons, this was definitely an unfathomable existence that dazzled the world. In Firewood Castle, List gathered a large number of nobles to hold a celebration for Emily's success in riding a dragon. During the banquet, flattery was rolling like a tide. Everyone knew that a brand new great noble had risen up, and that the brilliance of the Fire Kingdom was only second to List and Achi. The Dragon Knight was a human who stood at the peak of power. Although Emily was alone, she was still too young. She had enough time to create a new great noble family. The dragon-raising family was still lacking. After all, the dragon belonged to List. She was only the Dragon Knight, not the owner of the dragon. Of course. Most of the nobles didn't think that Emily would create a family. They had already treated Emily as a part of the Fire family. No one dared to speculate about the candidate for the queen. No one dared to pursue Emily. This world was monogamous. However, the strong were above the rules. In the Fire Kingdom, there were no rules that could restrict List. He didn't inherit the throne. He was the founder of a kingdom. He was a dragon knight with 6 dragons. He single-handedly challenged the 5-dragon knight and won. Marchioness Emily's glory as the Dragon Knight is inseparable from her hard work. Everyone here is the cornerstone of the Fire Kingdom. You must focus on nurturing your heirs and uncovering talents. Actively participate and support the Dragon Knight backup plan. List raised his wine glass. I hope that one day in the future, the kingdom will give birth to more Dragon Knight. Everyone, let's drink this cup together. The nobles raised their glasses. Your Majesty's glory is upon us. We will support the Dragon Knight backup plan with all our strength. Come, let us raise our glasses to celebrate Marchioness Emily's success in riding a dragon. Congratulations, Your Highness Emily. Congratulations, Your Highness Emily. Pontlisi raised his glass with the other nobles and congratulated the young and beautiful Fire Dragon Knight loudly. His eyes were filled with envy. He was a native of the Moon Killer tribe. He used to be a listener of the Luo tribe. He led his tribe to resist the Knight's invasion and was suppressed. However, his daughter Hippolyta protected a few elves and won the favor of His Majesty. That was why he was acquitted and became a member of the nobles. Now, he was conferred the title of Viscount and was fortunate enough to be invited to a celebratory banquet. See, Dragon Knight, it's so cool. His noble friend said excitedly in his ear. Magician, no, Dragon Knight is cool. Pontlisi replied, Larmet, you can train your son into a powerful knight and join the Dragon Knight backup plan. Maybe one day, he can also become a high and mighty Dragon Knight. He was also a Moon Killer tribe listener of a medium-sized tribe and was now also a Viscount. Larmet shook his head and sighed. My son can't do it. He's not talented enough. He's only been in school for a year, and he's still far from becoming an Earth Knight. But then he said in an excited tone, however, your daughter, Ta, she's very talented. Train her well and become a Dragon Knight to fight for the Moon Killer tribe. Larmet, her name is Hippolyta. Don't call her Ta anymore. His Majesty hopes that we can integrate into the Fire Kingdom as soon as possible. Although we haven't chosen a suitable surname, we must gradually adapt to our names. Only in this way can we become a noble that continues to pass on. I'm sorry, I slipped up. I'll correct it. Larmet took a sip of flower wine. Pontlisi, train Hippolyta well. She's just a girl. Dragon Knight is also a girl. I'm optimistic about Hippolyta. She's too good. Pontlisi couldn't help but show a proud look on his face when he talked about his daughter. She practiced Qi at the night school and became an Earth Knight in just a year. He didn't expect Hippolyta to become the next Dragon Knight. It would be incredible, but he would be satisfied as long as his daughter could become a sky knight. After all, he only had one daughter, Hippolyta. The Moon Killer tribe did not value boys over girls. The probability of a woman becoming a magician was no less than that of a man. Chapter 991. Hey, Hippolyta, did you know that Lady Emily has become a dragon knight? Hippolyta had just finished her knight training class when she heard the shocking news from her friend. The Thunder Elephant Sword Saint, who was ranked second among the female idols of the Fire Islands, had become the second dragon knight of the Fire Kingdom in a short period of time. She was also the first female dragon knight in the world. Really? The wheat-skinned Hippolyta's eyes widened. She had two idols. The first was the great magic shooter who rode a holy unicorn, the peerless Seiki in the hearts of the Moon Killers. The second was naturally Emily. She was only 2 years older than her, but she had already become a famous sword saint at a young age. Who would have thought that the unbelievably young Thunder Elephant Sword Saint would become a great dragon knight in such a short time? She could also be called Seiki. Of course it's true. I heard it from the substitute teacher. The vice principal was supposed to give us a lesson today, but he applied for leave. The teacher told us that he's going to attend the banquet hosted by His Majesty the King at Fire Castle to celebrate Lady Emily becoming a dragon knight. As if remembering something, her friend hurriedly added, "We can't talk about Lady Emily anymore. We should talk about Her Highness Emily." That's amazing. I really hope I can be as outstanding as Lady Emily. Her Highness Emily. Hippolyta said enviously. You're not bad either. You're the youngest among all the Earth Knights of the Moon Killers in our school. Many people are envious of you for becoming an Earth Knight in a year. Oh right, I heard that Her Highness Emily also became an Earth Knight in a year. I'm different from Her Highness Emily. I've been training in magic since I was young, so my body is sensitive to magic. I started off as a trainee knight after switching to fighting aura. Her Highness Emily, on the other hand, was an ordinary serf, but she managed to become an Earth Knight in a year. Emily's story was legendary and suitable for spreading. Of course, most of it was Liszt who got people to spread the word and set an example to attract young people to work hard in their cultivation. The effect was very good. Almost all the girls regarded Emily as their idol, second only to the worship of the magic shooter Eichi. Hippolyta spoke modestly, not daring to compare himself to Emily. However, in his heart, he really wanted to become the next Emily. After the cultural class in the afternoon, she packed up and hurriedly left the Royal Academy. This was a new school established after the new year, and it trained talented students from all over the world. Most of the students were of noble birth, but there were also a few who were commoners. Furthermore, Liszt had stipulated that the proportion of commoners should not be less than 30%. Back home, his father, Viscount Pontlisi, had returned. As a great ancient sorcerer who specialized in earth magic, his job was water conservancy. Hippolyta, you've returned. Father, has Princess Emily become a dragon knight? Hippolyta asked worriedly. She still felt that the news was a little fake. A 15-year-old dragon knight was 3 years younger than the king when he was promoted to a dragon knight. Impossible. Do you know that Princess Emily has indeed become a dragon knight? I've just returned from the Dragon Knight's celebration banquet in Firewood Keep. Hippolyta no longer had any doubts after receiving confirmation. She only sighed in amazement. That's amazing. A dragon knight. Father, what does Princess Emily look like? Is she tall and strong? She looks like a normal person, but she's tall and beautiful. Her radiance is only slightly weaker than His Majesty's. Pontlisi tried his best to describe it. In the eyes of a normal person, a dragon knight radiated light, and their aura was sacred and inviolable. Hippolyta yearned for the greatness of the dragon knight. Father, do you think I can become a dragon knight? You. Pontlisi couldn't help but recall his good friend Larmet's words. He looked at his daughter who was slowly growing up, and could not help but feel gratified. As long as you work hard, I believe you have the chance to become a dragon knight, and the glory of the Moon Slayer. Yes, I'll work hard. Hippolyta clenched her fists to encourage herself, but she quickly added, Father, my mentor once said that we're all citizens of the Kingdom of Fire. There's no distinction between the Moon Slayers and the firemen. We're all citizens of His Majesty. Pontlisi smiled, I was wrong. He sighed silently in his heart. Although the Moon Slayers had lived in primitive forests for a long time and their civilization was very backward, it did not mean that there were no intelligent people. He knew very well that the Kingdom of Fire's policy was to completely erase the culture of the Moon Slayers and assimilate them into the Night system. In a few generations, no one would remember the Moon Slayers. However, he did not object to this policy. He had already become a noble of the Night system, and it was fine as long as his family benefited. Who cared if the Moon Slayers lived or died? Liszt felt the burden on his shoulders lighten after Emily became a dragon knight. The girl could represent him in suppressing the Blazing Isles, and she could also attend some diplomatic events. This way, Liszt would have more free time to go wherever he wanted. I'll leave the internal affairs to the development committee and the external affairs to Emily. How wonderful! He took the fire dragon Leo and rode the invisible dragon Bard to the marine laboratory on Anchor Island to meet up with a Chi. Because Leo had the fire dragon water to drink, he no longer needed to stay in the endless volcanoes to train all day. He could go back occasionally to harvest a wave of volcano supreme demons. Now he was mainly responsible for fighting and developing a variety of fighting methods with Liszt to strengthen his strength. With a wingspan of 50 meters, Leo's strength is not much inferior to the orichalcum dragon Marta. It's hard to imagine how powerful he will be when he grows up with a wingspan of 100 meters. Liszt often sighed with emotion at Leo's growth. Elemental dragons were mostly evil dragons because they were powerful and difficult to kill. But so far, apart from Leo, the three kingdoms had not produced another fire dragon. On the other hand, evil dragons such as light dragons, earth dragons, and water dragons had been clearly recorded. Most of them lived in wild forests. As long as the evil dragons did not invade humans, the three kingdoms did not bother to form a dragon-slaying team to kill the evil dragons. The value of the evil dragons was not great. First of all, they could not be ridden. Second, there were no resources to be produced. Third, the supreme demons would cause large-scale geographical disasters. For example, there was a magic shooter who fought with the wind dragon and left behind a wind-howling valley. Other than mages who went there to admire the magic shooter's footsteps, no one could live around it. When Liszt rode the fire dragon, it was unknown how many people in the three kingdoms were jealous that he could conquer an elemental dragon from a young age. Although the elemental dragon did not produce resources, it was powerful enough to make people jealous. Unfortunately, it was useless for them to be jealous. Liszt rode the dragon one after another, shocking everyone. The wind whistled. Soon, they arrived at Anchor Island and saw the marine laboratory towering above the sea from afar. The clownfish race built it day and night, and this laboratory was like a palace on the sea. The base of the palace was a stone platform condensed by a chi using the earth elemental incarnation. The clownfish race was responsible for carving and decorating it. They held bone tools, and their hands were Qilin arms. The speed at which they cut rocks was far faster than human serfs. It had to be said that these ugly, sloppy, low-intelligence creatures had a strong talent for construction. I must harvest the mermaid's heart. These clownfish race are born to be the most suitable laborer. I must control the free labor of millions of laborers. Chapter 992. Your Majesty Liszt. Gulvig, how's your recovery? Thank you for your concern, Your Majesty. I can't fight, but I can dive in the deep sea. The bumps and hollows on the huge mermaid Gulvig's body disappeared at a speed visible to the naked eye. She looked much more pleasing to the eye, showing a little of the true elegance of a mermaid. List smiled and nodded. That's good. Only with a good body can you enjoy this wonderful life. A beautiful life. I just hope that the ocean can be purified as soon as possible so that the countless souls that have fallen into the curse of the cursed dragon can be freed from their pain. Don't worry, everything will be fine. After chatting with Gerwig for a while, List entered the palace-like laboratory on the sea. The interior of this seemingly magnificent and gorgeous building was a lot rougher. The artistic cells of the fish clown were not strong enough. There were too many traces of cutting and chiseling, and it was crooked and had no sense of symmetry. This made List instantly think that in the future, the clown fish would be responsible for the construction, while the serfs would be responsible for the decoration. Your Highness, you're here. The vice president of the Magic Guild, Kenley, came out to greet him. The Fire Kingdom had yet to be established, so the way they addressed List was rather chaotic. Most people still addressed him as His Highness, and a small number of people already addressed him as His Majesty. There was no unified rule. He himself did not care. His Highness and His Majesty were the same. Where is Achi? His Excellency Achilles is currently conducting an experiment in the laboratory. Your Highness, please follow me. Kenley led the way while reporting the progress of the experiment. Your Highness, while you were away, the laboratory has completed the preliminary purification experiment on the power of the curse. His Excellency Achilles is currently improving the process. In other words, the purification of the curse power will soon be completed? Yes, it's not very difficult. Isn't it difficult? The ancient mermaids couldn't do this even if they tried. Their technological concepts are too backward. Although the weave is declining, magical technology is constantly being developed. Our understanding of the truth far surpasses that of ancient times. Besides, His Excellency Achilles always brings us an endless stream of ideas and helps us expand our horizons. Achi was indeed great. She had greatly advanced magic technology. However, List was also proud of himself because he was the one who had brought many new ideas. If it weren't for the knowledge he taught Achi, the sorcerers here would probably still be in a state similar to, the sky is round and the earth is square. He did not know what the universe was, what planets were, and what gravity was. He asked, then, has the experiment of reversing the seal been completed? The experimental plan has been designed by His Excellency Achilles Roids. It's mainly based on the idea of the curse power contaminating Gerwig and designed a reverse petrification concept. However, I still need to verify some of the experimental steps, which might take a few days. Yes, I understand. When he arrived at the largest laboratory, he saw Achi leading a group of magicians and setting up a huge magic array. A cloud of black mist was constantly changing in the magic circle. It was the power of the cursed dragon that had been stripped from Gerwig. When the experiment was over, Achi personally introduced the theory of the experiment to List. She explained a set of complicated ideas, but List felt that he didn't understand anything. But that did not stop him from nodding solemnly. Since the plan is feasible, we shall use your design to purify the power of the curse. 3 days later. Everything was ready. Achi rode Charlie the unicorn, and Gerwig carried List toward the trench where the altar was found. Although Gerwig had not recovered his combat power, as the king of the sea, the mermaid's ability to control water was no weaker than that of the sirens. They could allow List to breathe steadily underwater. And they were not afraid of the water pressure of the deep sea. The three of them quickly dove into the trench and found a gap to enter the sealing altar. 6 mermaid statues still stood around the altar. The 20-meter-tall statues were still very different from real stone statues upon closer inspection. These statues had a vitality and were lifelike. Gerwig swam to the side of a statue and reached out to caress the face of the statue with complicated emotions in his eyes. It was like nostalgia for the past life, but also like lament that things remained the same, but people had changed. She murmured the other's name, Krostka Tidio Yowski Winika. Etnia, we will be reunited for real soon. It took a long time to recite the names of more than 300 Moon Age words. Then she walked to the side of the second statue and also muttered, Kamenius Podolski Aktian Dioni. Blbosi. Tibitas. Salavara. Wes Wendy. Coco Rich. The names of the 6 mermaids were all made up of more than 300 Moon Age words. It was hard for the orphan Wendy to remember and not forget them. However, List only remembered the last name of each mermaid, Etnia, Blbosi, Tibitas, Salavara, Wes Wendy, and Coco Rich. He planned to force these mermaids to change their names after obtaining the mermaid's heart and forbid them from using their original names of more than 300 words. At this time, a chi had already cracked the altar, revealing the pitch-black deep hole below. Then she set up a magic array to guide the power of the cursed dragon out and then bound it with a magic array. Roar! The dragon's roar sounded in his heart and ears. The power of the cursed dragon, which was like a piece of rotten meat, rushed out of the seal and crashed back and forth in the magic array. Then it turned into a dragon claw and wantonly scratched, but under the powerful binding of the magic array, it was constantly broken and purified. The pitch-black fog attached to it became thinner and thinner. In the end, this lump of rotten meat was purified and could no longer condense into a dragon claw. It slowly condensed into the image of a dragon and flew slowly in the magic array. This dragon was grayish-brown and slender like a snake. Its wings were also like bones, and its entire body was wrapped in scales. There was almost no meat on its body, somewhat similar to the desolate dragon in Monster Hunter. Most importantly, where its neck and body were connected, there was also a dragon tooth platform. This dragon can also be ridden. List's pupils dilated slightly. No one knew what he was thinking, but his heart was full of desire. Even though he already had 6 dragons, he still had a thirst for dragons. Your Majesty, List, Her Excellency A Chi is going to reverse the mermaid statue. We should stay away so that it doesn't affect Her Excellency's spell casting. Okay. He rode on Gulvig's shoulder and swam into the distance. The mermaid statue did not have anything similar to the dragon tooth platform, so she could only grab Gulvig's hair to stabilize her body. Fortunately, Gulvig was now trying to integrate into human life and had used the scales returned to her to make a set of fish scale tights to avoid being exposed. With the eye of magic, List carefully observed how a chi reversed the petrified statue. He saw the magic array cut the little dragon transformed by the power of the cursed dragon into 6 parts, and then guided the 6 parts of power quickly into the mermaid statue. After a while, these powers seeped out of the mermaid statue and remerged into a smaller cursed dragon. Obviously, a lot of power was consumed during the reversal process. A chi took out a carefully made glass bottle and put the cursed dragon into the bottle. Then, she removed the magic array and recycled some of the materials that could still be used. Is it done, a chi? List followed Gulvig and swam back to the statue. A chi nodded and smiled, It's done, brother. Now we just need to wait for the petrification seal of the statue to be melted by the power of the cursed dragon, and then they can restore their bodies. How long will it take? It may take a few days. Gulvig immediately said, Your Majesty, List, Her Excellency A Chi, I will stay to protect them. When they recover, I will bring them back to Anchor Island and offer the mermaid's heart to Your Majesty. As for now, Your Highness, please accept Gulvig's mermaid's heart. She said. She held her chest with both hands, and soon, a beating transparent crystal-shaped azure blue heart jumped out and fell into her hands. She then held it to List. List looked at the mermaid's heart that was much bigger than him and was a little overwhelmed, so, Gulvig, what should I do next? Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation votes, begging for golden keyboard booster card. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.